Yeah, ABI is a social enterprise. We have a development arm and also a purely profit-making arm that supports the ABI. So we have transitioned over time. We used to be called the ABI Trust. We are now called the ABI Development. So I have the honor this evening to chair this their session, not because that I'm the most knowledgeable on the subject, but as part of the sponsors who were behind organizing this event. And we want to pick your brains, and as the convener suggested, we want ideas that are really going to help us really influence policy and have a working platform. Because we've had many dormant platforms really that do not reach to anything critical. So one of the key outputs of this meeting will be coming up with names of the people who will be on the working group or the steering committee. And the purpose of this committee is really, from time to time, engaging each other and coming up with the concrete solutions that can really drive the animal industry sector, specifically the dairy. A lot has been discussed about the dairy and how fast it is growing. We've, from the statistics, we've seen that in the past 10 years, the exports, I don't know which percentage I can even call, from $5 million to over $130 million. So that is a huge, really improvement that we have registered in the sector. So the questions were very clear to us that we want to be number one in Africa, specifically to do with the animal feeds and then animal production. When we looked at the aquaculture sector strategic plan focus, the issue of feed and feed security was quite key, was actually among the 4 priority areas that the ministry is focusing on. And from the technical information that is available, we know that feed contributes at least 60% to the entire cost of producing milk. So we are going to look at feed as a major limiting factor and what we really need to do in terms of really changing. What are the game changers in terms of the feed industry concerning specifically the dairy animals. And then we shall also look at issues to do with the milk and milk products in terms of the consumption patterns. We have seen from the presentation of Pearl that really we are focusing on the export market. And Pearl, as just a single entity, is exporting more than 95% of its entire production. And we've seen that at least 300 million liters are going for exports annually. This contributes for more than 10% of the total production. So it's quite key that we really look at these areas, and the ideas are going to come from you. My role is just to chair and get your views. Then these views will be emphasized into a report that will be shared to you. So the ball is open, and we shall start by focusing on specifically animal feeds. We've seen the issues surrounding animal feed in terms of quantity, in terms of the variety, in terms of the quality. What do you think really needs to be done to turn around the issue of feeds and feeding, specifically looking at dairy? So the discussion is open. Every answer is right. So you're welcome. Yes, sir. I will request maybe Joseph to take some notes.
Thank you very much, Chairman and Moderator. My name is Peter Yangan. I'm a small-scale dairy farmer. I belong to many cooperatives. I belong to Uganda Crane Primaries cooperative union, embracing many cooperative societies, direct cooperative societies. Also a member of Livestock Development Forum. That's why I'm here. Yes, specifically on animal feeds for dairy. This is a great intervention for the development of dairy. Uganda could be, with a good climate environment, we could do wonders with animal feeds. Today we do not. I know one person who does farming, I think in Kakiri, and picks feeds from Kapchorwa. So these are interventions because he factors in transport costs and the feeds he collects and the benefit at the farm. So you find you're making economic sense. So we could do wonders in this country with animal feeds, specifically targeting for dairy. However, we do not currently have an enabling law. I don't know whether we know it. The government is trying to draft a bill on animal feeds. I think currently it is before the Solicitor General, and soon it will be presented to Parliament. So I think all stakeholders, it's incumbent upon us that we contribute to the framing of this law. Secondly, we need to tailor the contents of this law when it is out, or even today, the best practices in handling feeds to the extension working system. Because today, the extension government again has made very great strides in promoting extension working in this country. But I do not think these extension workers are well availed with best practices in handling feeds. So for me, the biggest intervention would be, of course, passing the law, and the second, tailor the requirements, the best practices to the extension workers to reach to the farmers or value chain segments that handle animal feeds. Thank you.
Okay, one thing which I would like to throw to the members, should every farmer be producing feed? Is it economical for even people with the fewer numbers? Let's say we are looking at, especially those that are practicing zero grazing, like 2 to 10 animals. Is it really feasible for those people to be producing feed? Or should have specific entities or enterprises that are producing feed animals and can supply this feed to the people who need it? Yes, Doctor.
Yeah, my thoughts on that is twofold. When we compare ourselves with the developed countries, definitely the best practice would be to have big, large animal feed producers to produce feed, which would be standardized. And then, because the more feed they produce, the cheaper these feeds would be. But of course, even the standards, it is even much easier to maintain the standards. However, that one hasn't happened yet. So the smaller, call it medium or smaller feed producers that are available now, no one controls their standards. And if you produce good food, they can't produce enough, and maybe this is the challenge. So the nearest now to the farmers produce feeds which are not on standard, and the farmers suffer for it. So for that, because of that, it is better for now for farmers to produce their own feed, but maybe be given standards for the things that they're supposed to put, and they can control the feed that they produce and be really responsible with themselves. Then as we go ahead, the next thing would be maybe farmers in farmers groups to agree to come together and produce food communally or together, and they may be helped by either government or they look for loans and what have you to produce feed. But I think the beginning point is that they should produce their own feed as a first step, instead of waiting for somebody to come and produce feed for themselves, or to buy feed which is not of the same standard and they are fleeced. You find stones, you find even there's so much you find in feed which are produced by uncontrolled feed producers. However, The other thing for me which I wanted to say is this, that is secondary. The production of the feeds that have been talked about in this meeting. Something that hasn't been stressed enough for me, maybe which you can put on this bucket list of ours, is the production of feed by farmers on their own farms, particularly those ones who have got some little bit of land. The production of both carbohydrate sources and then the leguminous sources. And for the carbohydrate, you're talking about silage, maize, elephant grass, the different grasses, and then add value on these on their own farms by feed conservation, by making silage, making hay, and to that one, then they could add the manufactured seed feeds. But I think it is very important. Now, even this one, there are challenges that farmers do have. Some of the seeds, like for example, when you talk about seeds for the planting materials, for like grasses, Chloris Guyana, tropical grasses like Bracharia mulatto, which is okay, that one can be done vegetatively by Nara and what have you. These, even the planting material for elephant grass, some of these things, these are quite expensive for the farmers. So one of the things that I think we could put on our long list is how can the farmers access proper planting material at affordable prices?
Chairman, proceed. Chairman, my feeling is we are having a lot of good ideas. Is there any way we can make the ideas work in a very structured manner based on the two tasks that have been given to us?
Because you don't have time.
We have a vision. That vision, you've re-echoed it. From a planning perspective, we lack the bigger mission, but there is a vision. So let's move within the ambit of the vision. Now, there are two tasks. Part A of the two tasks, my brother Peter has contributed well on it with two proposals to the best of my knowledge. My brother Dr. Semamba has also contributed on it. Let's capture that because it's brainstorming and we list as many options as possible so that we exhaust A. And then we get to B. And then we also try to brainstorm as much as possible so that we get the two tasks covered, and then we shall look at that group, and then we call it a different day. If we go the way we are going now, Chairman, I'm afraid we might finish at midnight. Yes. Let's pick up those key points. They are there. So we could start with A, recapture what he said. He brought in, there is lack of an enabling law, so we need an enabling law. Now, he set up something to do with the standards, and then managing the cost of production.
I wanted to add.
No, mine also, the second one was telling the regulations and the law to the extension workers.
Let's hear from
to structure our discussion better. I was suggesting, let's look at our vision and relate it to, one, feeds. When we got feeds, I was over the view. We structure it in a way, discuss it in a structured manner, in a way that we look at issues around production when it comes to feeds. We look at issues when fine there is production, what happens when it comes to issues of access to market for those feeds.
Excuse me,
Then what happens?
Access to finance.
The two tasks.
We don't.
Yes.
The two tasks are we are handling diary in relation to feeds and in relation to dairy
Animal
products.
production.
Dairy products. So in that regard, I was of the view. We look at those two.
No, the two tasks are specific. That's why we
That's
say
very
maybe
specific.
they read them for us.
Exactly.
The first task is what do we need to do?
I'm taking notes. So what we are doing?
Let me rule on this.
Yes, thank you,
when-
because now
when
we are wasting time discussing the
beginning
structure.
this discussion, I read out our assignments. and there were two, that we want to be number one. And these two, especially in these two areas, Uganda would want to be leading in Africa. So what do we need to do as a country, as Uganda, to position ourselves to be number one in these two areas? In the issue of animal feeds and in the issue of milk products. Animal feeds, why? Because we have the competitive advantage. The cost of production, first of all, is very low. Labor is cheap. The environment is favorable. So those are the areas why we now want, what can we do to achieve that goal of really Uganda producing feed animals and even exporting it, because there are countries that are exporting it. When it comes to animal products, specifically we are looking at milk production and of course processed products. We've seen from the statistics that really made great strides in the last 10 years. And after coffee and tea, there is the third. Actually, it is even threatening to be the second. We may even be the leading in Africa. So what should we do to achieve that goal? So I think those are the two areas. The other question is about forming the working groups that are really now going to digest whatever you are brainstorming. Here we are not going to delve into discussing each and every aspect, but really we are picking up these ideas that the smaller committee is now going to refine and come up with something concrete.
Yes.
That's how I understood.
Yeah, and
it
that's why I
was
was
doing well.
suggesting that we structure it in a way we handle when it comes to feeds
Yeah.
at production level.
Yeah.
What are issues, salient issues that we need to look at?
So that's why I posed the question that is it really economically viable for each and every dairy farmer to go into feed production?
No.
If we really want to position ourselves to be the leading manufacturers of feed in this country, even to the extent that we can export.
The answer was almost answered yes by Dr. Semam.
Yes.
And he told
Then
us the
destruction, yeah.
feeds can be broken into two.
Yeah.
They are concentrates and they are basal feeds. And with basal feeds, he talked about silage and hay. And when you look at it, you cannot, by Ugandan standards, have somebody somewhere growing for you elephant grass, then Uganda buy. It would be cheaper since majority of us are small scale farmers. Save alone a few, maybe ranchers like we have been told of Nek, Mwana, and a few others. Probably those can buy. So I think we say that it is yes and no. Yes, because of our smallness of production, that each of us produces our hay or our pasture, silage, but when it comes to concentrates that require a lot of gathering of ingredients, then those can be left to bulk producers, like maybe Ukachik, like Rinzika, name them.
No, actually, he also pointed out that they can also be produced communally. You can actually meet and decide that this is our group. We start producing communally and we do this. Yeah, but the other thing he actually pointed out before the whole thing was if we are putting that down, let's have proper access to inputs, the planting materials. If we can get access to planting materials, then that is something that government can help us on top of the law, also come up with some kind of policy on how can we get this. If we are going to have one extension service provider in my village, and that's the guy I can go to and say, where is this planting material? Is this proper planting material? Because we don't have to have 100 of them, but if we can have one in every community, you can access that information. And everybody is talking as if all farmers understand planting feeds. They don't. I heard about the grass and everything. Some of these farmers have never heard about this. So are we going to have village groups of teaching them about feeds for starters? Because some of them even just ignore. I was in Singra when cows were dying because they just can't access the medicine. Some of these things, is there going to be kind of a training? So if we're writing our bucket list, training us on feeds as dairy farmers would be maybe the starting point.
So are we adopting?
I'm capturing now.
Okay.
You want me to read what?
No, sorry.
Let's hear from him then.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to add on the two captured issues, the basal and the commercial feeds.
Yes.
Now with the BESO, on top of giving the inputs like seed, there should be a deliberate effort by government to subsidize the labor-saving technologies. Because if you are going to encourage people to make silage, they cannot afford the shredder machines. There should be a deliberate government effort, at least through the groups, the farmer groups. These labor-saving technologies should be given at a subsidy, because they are at a cost which many of these farmers do not afford. Then two, we should also strengthen the linkage between research and extension, so that from time and again, these extension workers can be able to disseminate available technologies, especially in terms of feed formulations available and which are more tailored to the production system. Then three, on the commercial feed, government should fast track the feed policy. The policies have been lying on the shelves for a long time. But we needed to regulate the feed industry yesterday. We have many issues of these aflatoxins and what we should come to an end. So we need to, government needs to fast track the policy.
Then the other thing which I wanted us to comment on in terms of input as seed for pastures, because in Uganda we don't have locally certified pasture seed, because most of the seed that is imported from Kenya, Brazil, is quite expensive, way above what an ordinary farmer can afford. And yet locally produced seed by farmers really has very low viability. What are some of the areas that really government can focus on to change that around? Because if we don't have good seed, then definitely we shall have poor forage or no forage at all. So what can the government do about that? Because the seed, for example, let's say Rhodes grass, that is imported from Kenya Seed Company. The kilo is going for a minimum of 45,000 per kilo. And yet, one needs, because of the way pasture seed is, one needs like 3 to 5 kilograms per acre. And that is a lot of money. And yet, seed that is produced by farmer has very low viability, less than 40%.
Area is at 120.
Yeah, my little experience, government has tried to do something. It has tried to do something in the way of blade by narrow, produce seeds. And also by the Department of Animal Production, there's a pasture section. However, I think it sort of falls short of not producing enough of the seed which could be available to farmers. So one of the things that we should put on the list is to revive this program. I know they are there, but to revive them or strengthen them so that properly.
What is the program? What is the name of the program?
It is pasture seed production by narrow, really propagating, like for example, this Bracharia mulatto is a pasture that was brought from Brazil and it's being propagated out of research or out of adaptive research. But also in the Ministry of Agriculture and Animal Production is a department for that. So if we could revive these two programs and strengthen them, that would be good. But because of lack of sustainability or some time of government program, it would be good now to link up those ones with farmers who are known to be doing that aspect, so that the ministry or NARO works with those farmers. They are known, they are listed, they are supported to produce this grass in good amounts and then access it to the smaller farmers at the beginning, and then also give them the technologies of doing that one. Now, a part of the reason why that particularly Chlorus Guyana or Rhodes grass, why it doesn't do very well, is because it must be planted at a certain time. First, it must be harvested at the proper time. It must also be planted after the seed has matured and been there for a certain period of time. I've seen farmers who have grown grass seeds which they bought from everywhere and about a year or two. Nothing is happening. So those farmers who are given the capacity to propagate should be given the technology for doing it, planting it, managing it, and then harvesting and then storage.
Chairman, I wanted to take up one point from one colleague who talked about government subsidy. And when he was talking about government subsidy, he was largely focusing on areas of mechanization, where, for example, farmers have got to buy equipment, farmers have got to buy implements. These are costly, and certainly the government should come in with some kind of subsidy. But one critical challenge, even before farmers acquire this kind of equipment, is the issue of land opening. Land opening is such a big challenge to farmers in Uganda because it is costly. The cost of hiring a grader to come and have bush clearance before, for example, use a tractor, and then a plow, a harrow, and then a planter, is a very, very huge cost. Now, government bought some equipment which is lying in either local governments or Ministry of Works or something like that. There must be a deliberate effort by government geared towards helping farmers on bush clearance, so that then land preparation becomes easier for them. Because it has a ripple effect. If, for example, a farmer buys, say, a tractor and then plus implements, they will not be able to have fine seed beds because of the obstacles that will be there, and the turns and all of this will make the whole exercise very expensive in terms of the fuel consumptions of the machine, and then the actual normal working of the other relevant implements will not happen. For example, if a land is not properly prepared, it will be hard for any farmer to use a planter, assuming they are targeting to plant maize for silage. Assuming it is grass and they'll have to make hay, they'll need a slasher, they'll need a rake, they'll need a baler. It becomes a big problem. So we must have something towards that, towards making it at least affordable and quite easier for farmers. The other thing is within the dairy sector, plenty of these products where we're talking of subsidies are still attracting taxes in form of VAT. A farmer is buying a baler, it is attracting taxes. A slasher or a haymaker, it is attracting this. A forage harvester, it is, now to the farmer who is not actually VAT registered, this is additional cost. So something has to be done in that line. Now, the last bit to do with this is Dr. Semamba talked about, it's about the seed. But farmers' needs, seeds is one of those requirements. How do we make it possible for communities to have a one-stop center where they can access seeds, where they can access, if it is herbicides or any other kind of support that they need within the agri sector, they are able to get it, where they can access possibly skilled manpower that can operate, for example, tractors, so that their yields, their productivity goes high. When you don't have the right skills, it's harder for you to have better productivity. Where you have good skilled labor, your level of productivity will go high, you'll be able to plant on time, you'll be able to catch up with the seasons, and certainly your yield will be better. In this kind of cases, for example, crop population is very key. And then you will not be able to harvest using, say, forage harvester when you didn't plant well, because you must have had the correct spacing and then in rows for you to be able to.
Thank you, Mehdi. I think we have discussed a lot to do with the base of feed or the forage. I now want to hear about especially the concentrate feed, because it's also one of the major limiting factors. We know, first of all, besides the quality, the cost is quite high. So what are some of the areas that we need to really focus on in terms of...
Chairman, before you go away,
yes, sir.
has he picked those points? Why is it good to make sure that he has picked them? Because this is the starting point.
Yeah.
This is a starting point for most of the farmers before you go to the commercial or bulk production. If you jump to this, commercial production will be so suitable. So, but I usually I speak to those ones, and then let us finish those ones, then we go to the commercial. Because what I was saying, what he was saying of the mechanization, it would be good, I'm sorry, that maybe because of the expenses, that government works with commercial companies. I'm thinking of engineering solutions because I tried to do it on my own. It was tough, teaching code and what have you. Yet when I used them, they have the technology. If you can partner with them, and of course government gives a little bit of money so that it's not so costly on the farmer. So that it does it for, if they go to an area, they do it for maybe 4 or 5 farmers, so the farmers don't have to buy that equipment. It is programmed in there, becomes cheaper and efficient for the farmers.
Okay. Well, maybe let Joseph respond because he's our rapporteur. And
Okay,
then
so
I can hear from Dr. Samanya, him, and you.
This is what I have so far captured. There is no enabling law except the feeds bill. The proposal that they therefore need to contribute to the finalization of this law. That was the first point given. The second was support changes in handling practices through expansion of extension systems, especially training of extension workers. The third one was we promote production either at to promote special production of feed, and there was a concern between every farmer and group, and the proposal was that we need to go through government about community feed producers. The other one was need to control standards of small and medium scale feed producers. The other one was increase access to planting materials. The other one was to teach village groups on feed production so that we can improve overall extension services. 7, we need to push for subsidies for labor-saving technologies. Number 8, to strengthen linkages between research and extension so that the products that are produced are tailored towards the needs of the farming communities. 9, government should fast track the feeding policy. 10, promote growing of certified pasture seed locally. 11, to revive a program biennial on pasture seed production. Number 12 was government should increase the subsidies on mechanization, especially on land opening equipment, on land clearing equipment, bush clearing equipment. 13 was remove taxes, especially VAT on agricultural equipment. 14 was the need for skills development for machinery operators at the farm level. 15, somebody proposed that government should work with partners and gave the example of engineering solutions so that services that are expensive the low cost can be lowered.
Why can't we, in line with that, adopt something that the Indians are doing? What they are doing is they are basically focusing on contract services. And they're involving the private sector. They identify a lead farmer, it could be a nucleus farmer, or someone who has the desire to work with farmers. Now, they subsidize, but this guy will be offering a service at a cost. Now, if under normal circumstances, the normal rate, market rate is about, say, 120,000, say, per acre to do certain things, through a government subsidized kind of system, the farmer will only pay 50,000. So that at the end of the day, the service is got by the farmer at the earliest possible opportunity, and I don't want to say cheaper, but at a value that represents value for money.
Okay, thank you. Let's hear from him, and then Dr. Samanya.
Thank you. Mine was about early warning as regards copy and paste as per feeds, especially planting pastures. We have a scenario where we imported the armyworm, which was a problem to us. So this is another warming, especially on regulation and bringing this pasture grassland to our country. So the need is that regulation. Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Samanya.
First of all, I almost wanted to contribute last because I didn't want to do a lot of biases by virtue of my previous engagements. A former commissioner of animal production and marketing, but I'm also a small-scale farmer. Adam there will upgrade me probably also to. But my experience is on what I wanted to contribute is my observation on extension services or delivery of advisory services. And those who are widely traveled will also probably say more. The area of animal nutrition, feeds and feeding is a specialized area. The way our extension services and staffing of extension services is that at the lower level we have a veterinary officer. The veterinary officer trains in very many things. But my experience is that often, most of the time, the area of animal diseases is so wide that it occupies him or her most of the time. And most of us, unfortunately, I'm one, move towards that area. And yet, to a farmer, when the diseases are controlled, one of the most useful people are the ones who will help him or her produce. And one area is the animal nutritionist. Now, here, in our training institutions here, we have people who are not veterinary doctors, but are trained as animal scientists. Now there's the animal production degree in Makerere, but there's also Bachelor of Science in Animal Science in the Faculty of Agriculture. Over time, that group of people who study animal nutrition, animals management, animal science generally, not animal health, not veterinary degree, oftentimes they are not optimally utilized. Because when they say, and they have no slot along the
public service structure.
Especially at the local government level, at the ministry, there is. But at the lower level, they have been phasing them out. And now at the district, they talk of district agriculture, rather sub-county. They talk of veterinary officer, agricultural officer. The agricultural officer will concentrate on crops. The veterinary officer is overwhelmed by these diseases, FM did there, this and that. And yet there are those skilled people who, when you invite me, a veterinarian, and you are now talking about seed production, haymaking, it needs me to take an extra effort and give time to it. What am I saying? That part of the problem, and a big problem, is that we are not optimally utilizing those people who are trained in animal nutrition, feeds and feeding specifically. And we are overloading the veterinarian who must handle the disease aspect, but must also find time and take an extra effort to go and specialize in that additional area. So
our suggestion should be to lobby for creating that position in the structure at that lower level of either nutritionist or a general animal science person.
Yes,
Well,
that is really good. Yeah.
Yeah, very good idea. Let's be specific, still. Let's pause now.
Okay, let's have like 2 more minutes on the issue of feeds, but I would like to welcome suggestions concerning the concentrate feed, and let's focus on the entire value chain. Not only we are looking at the production level, the farmer level, and yet we are looking at the entire value chain.
Yeah, but you posed one question.
We are farmers.
Yes.
The floor is mine, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a feeling that we left out what would have been number one. The reason we're all here is because UAA and Grow Africa and MAIF actually lobbied us and called us here to discuss. Now, if we take a look at the surrounding, the environment, the current government is in power and has been in power for this long because of the systems and the structures that were set, right from the LC1 to the president. What do I mean here? The example would be, to bring it to practitioner, would be the SNB. They have been able to achieve. At first, they tried to broadcast, and it kind of was difficult until they actually found a leeway, which was partnering with cooperatives, and it has worked. What Joseph was basically pronouncing yesterday and today, and all the achievements, is because of that partnership. Now, we're trying to actually, what we're talking about here could be just problems. We're trying to solve problems. How about the causes to these problems? Now, as long as, quote me, agree or not, as long as we have no established breed societies in this country, as long as the dairy farmer doesn't know where to buy the right breed, where to sell his the milk, or to be compensated for putting much, as long as the seed company has no contract and doesn't know how many dairy farmers it has to contract or produce for, as long as the feed mill is not tagged to any cooperative or a breed society, the prices are going to still skyrocket. The challenge will still be there. The reason the former commission, I think they will attest to this, Dr. Samanya and Dr. Semambo are being butchered now with the current generation because they did not do much. Let's face the reality. They did not do much because there were no structures. There were no structures to plug into. There are no organizations to plug into. Farmers need, we need to establish farm societies or breed societies so that it is passion that blended with professionalism that you bring then to basically solve a problem.
Okay, thank you, Ben. I think you led us into the next aspect, which was looking at animal products.
No, Chairman. These are two things. And this is general. This is general. Wait a minute.
Yeah, but try to be brief.
Yeah, the brief thing is we need to differentiate the bottom-up approach and the top-down approach. What the government can do and what the farmers can do. And the farmers' initiatives is not forced, and it can do anything, any change, as long as we basically empower them. If we don't, the reason why Kenyans are actually beating us on the game is because they have trustees and breed societies. And unless we really benchmark and bring that here, whatever we're discussing, maybe here we'll take the tractors to Nakasongola, only one farmer would probably buy. Yet, if we had a breed society, we just contracting.
We sold 28 through the cooperatives in South Africa.
Exactly, thank you. That's so what I mean. So if we can spread that out, then whether Medi will sell or contract on basically servicing, I have 300 acres that I've tried to dig, but up to now I cannot get the stamps out because getting a grader, to me it is very 1 million per day. But if I had in Kashaga Morianton a cooperative that can contract Medi to give us a grader, that will be just solved. And then he will come and basically plant the pastures.
So what are you saying?
My suggestion is, as number one, for me, to actually basically plug in
and strengthening of farmers, cooperatives, and farmers.
That is well captured.
And that actually also caters for even the strategy too. the animal products.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know who's producing what, you cannot standardize, you cannot regulate, and you cannot even take care of the market.
Okay, you've talked
Chairman,
about the
recently-
issue of the breeder farm, which
Breed
takes us into
societies.
the second aspect of
Chairman,
animal
I just
products.
want to give information. I don't know whether that will be relevant, so that we tie it up in there. Recently, Ministry of Agriculture launched, they call it the farmers register. Farmers what? Register. And that they are going to register all farmers in Uganda, in every parish. Now, yeah, and it was launched by the president in Amalele. Now, I don't know, it could be politics, it could be anything, but it's a brilliant idea. Because then, the whole concept of the, everything that we are talking about, because even if someone is going to invest in making feed, it becomes much easier because this person will be knowing the size of the domestic market and possibly the possibilities outside that market. So let's re-emphasize the importance of having maybe dairy farmers registered.
Profiled.
So that they are known.
Okay.
Profile,
Noted.
national profiling.
Yeah,
That is
profiling
noted.
them.
Chairman,
Please, I would ask that we go to the second aspect, because we have spent more than 40
I wanted to
minutes
guide on
on just
previous issue we had captured,
yes.
which Dr. Samanya submitted. And members were proposing to include in the structure. That one is not possible. Because even getting the current number of extension workers has not been easy. You will swallow the wage bill, and government will not accept on that. But what I would propose, these extension workers from the colleges, they have the science.
Yeah.
What they need is the skill. Probably we can emphasize that in the continuous professional development of these extension workers, nutrition should be featured. We can also suggest on the curriculum to deepen that area. But don't think the government will capture to broaden the structure.
That is well noted, because the issue of animal feeds is quite broad, and it is an area of great interest to every dairy farmer. But we'd also like to look at the issue of milk production and the other dairy products. The question is clear: how are we positioning ourselves as a country really to lead in terms of the volumes we are producing, in terms of the exports? I would like to hear more suggestions. Of course, it also, the issue of nutrition ties into that.
Yes.
But what are other areas besides feeds and feeding should we target?
Mr. Chairman, I keep forgetting the bulk production. Have we finished it?
No, we had two areas, feeds and feeding,
Yes.
and then animal products.
In the bulk production of
Well, let's leave that one for now. 40
now.
minutes here.
Because there were options, like in your initial remarks, where you suggested that people can grow own feed on farm, then we can have community farms or cooperatives, we can have commercial entities producing feed animals for supply, even export.
So the ones below is
Can I
in place
contribute,
of
Chair?
regulator.
Okay, let's
I-
hear from
So I'm the only person who has this experience here in dairy. But for the 5 years, I've learned 3 things. First, for feed, is that there is a collection of farmers, especially in southwestern Uganda, that have picked up mechanization. And they are doing 3 things. For silage, the problem I have seen is that there are no technologies for storage. Whereas you can transfer the hay from one farm to another, you cannot transfer silage. There is a bag that they try to use, but it's not, it's very expensive. So my proposal, in addition to this, I will add that we need to alternatives for storage of silage, not only in the pit and underground. Yes, appropriate technology. In terms of feed, we did a study last year with the Biyenzika, one of the presenters there. And 1 kilogram of Biyenzika at 2,800 was producing 4 liters. I mean, 4 kilograms of feed were producing 3 liters. Now, each kilogram was 2,800. When you multiply 4 times 8 to get 3 times 700, you wouldn't invest 800 to get 2,100. But I have noticed that especially in all Uganda, you see the breweries grain. People use that thing. So I went to Mbazadi and said, but can't we improve this thing? And they were able to produce a feed at 700 shillings, which could give 4 kilograms, you get 2.82 with the pilots we did. So the other proposal on the concentrates is that we could, as a forum, push for improving that, because the business is there. People pick the breweries waste and they just give it to animals in a half-assed way. Yet the investment, what we calculated with Mbazadi and looking for a private sector person, it will need $72,000 US, which is about 300,000 Uganda shillings, 300 million Uganda shillings, for you to set up that process to be able to produce enough feed. So I will include that. Okay. But in terms of your question, I want to inform the people here that in southwestern Uganda, they are big farms, and nobody should lie to us that the farmers are poor. Because I know that last week, Kante BV, a Dutch company, has signed with a farm to supply coolers. I know that Dennis Induhura, the guy you know, he has invested over 400 million to be a breeder. So we can propose strategies here, but I don't think if you sat with that guy and you told him the things that we are talking about here, they matter to him. You take away your nonsense. So I would emphasize the doctors and the technical people here. Let's look at the transformation that is going. Things are not very bad. I know that there are 5,000 commercially oriented farmers in southwestern Uganda, very strong. They put water systems on my desk. I have water systems of 300 million. People are doing community water systems. They come together, 7 of them. They put investment in one and they distribute water on their farms. So we are not talking about...
Joseph, the point is, we are not saying Uganda has 7.8 million farmers. UNAFE has actually been working on that.
Yeah.
We're not saying that they are not there. How do we get us from the level of selling all our milk to Pioneer? Since those guys, what are they called? Pearl Dairy. Since Pearl Dairy came on board, and I met you, I think, about 4 years ago. Since Pearl Dairy came on board, at least for the longest time possible, milk has been 700, 800. There's a time it used to go 250. Yep. Yeah. But without even lobbying or anything, because there's a constant person buying milk, we have managed to come from nobody to become number 3 in Africa selling milk. How do we improve that to become even bigger than coffee? Exactly. It's not that there are no people there. We are adding. On the 5,000 that you know, can we get 20,000 or 200,000?
I have 3 proposals. One is that there are new technologies business in the box, where farmers can be supported to do those promotions. Now subsidies coming, and there are NGOs that are going to do. I know that SNB is going to be doing an ABI trust in the next 4 years. So we could promote that, where a farm that is 300, 500 liters can process their own milk on the farm. That is number 1. I know that Abesigana, Nyamisindo, Chakamunga, they are planning to set up mini processing units at the cooperative. So we could say, as this forum, we are going to promote that.
So the
number 3, FCL is there. The biggest thing that can ever happen to the dairy value chain in Uganda is if we get FCL running. Because whereas the exports have grown from $5 million to 130 million in the last 10 years, it is a bubble. If Pearl withdrew today, because Pearl every day is buying 800,000 liters of milk, that means that every day is paying around 800 million to Ugandans. If we pulled out, it is a bubble. So we need to create other alternatives through subsidies and all these things to make sure that the cooperatives are producing.
Okay. That is well captured. I wanted also to mention one thing. There is another school of thought that not everyone should go into dairy farming. Actually, this is the model. You've seen what the CEO of Pearl presented. They want to focus on 1,000 farmers that are producing 1,000 liters every day than dealing with the multiple cooperatives of farmers. So I think these are some of the things we should actually be thinking about. Then, would you rather deal with fewer people who are producing a lot, or let everyone produce little?
Mr. Chairperson, that is Pearl.
Yes.
But we also have small scale farmers who want to improve.
Yes.
And 2, when the milk remains at 700, I want to assure you they are not breaking even. She made the presentation that I want to base on my submission.
Yes, sir.
I happen to be a small scale dairy farmer.
Yeah.
Even if I sold my milk at 1,000 shillings, looking at the cost of everything, I will not be making a profit. Pearl, yes, because people, yes. You know, milk production in the West was like a tradition. Many people have not even attached on economics. You may find people producing and they are happy, yet some of them are working here in Kampala. Someone is a commissioner, he takes back money to the other farm, and yet what we want to do is to have people involved and be self-sustaining. I want to tell you that many farms, let me use you as an example. The commissioner here of animal production has a farm somewhere, immediately he's retired, the farm crumbles. Why? Because it was being sustained by his job. And for us, we are looking at commercializing agriculture, such that somebody starts from scratch to grace. And even then, I've visited Kenyan farmers. Somebody tells you, I'm the 3rd generation manager of this farm. Majority of our farms go with their generation. So as we discuss, yes, you could have sold tractors, but you're selling tractors not only farmers, but to dualistic farmers. Somebody is a businessman in Chikubo, he makes a few kickbacks, he takes them to the farm, shortly thereafter, he doesn't have a son doing it, his wife is not doing it. So we are looking at sustainability.
Thank you, Mr. Chikos. Let's hear from
I am young. My name is Carlos Pamba. I refer to myself as a peasant farmer. I am the, which is very true. I am one of the unlucky few youths who has made a mistake of investing, the accident of investing in dairy. It really hurts me when I sit on this table and I hear all the beautiful words that everyone throws around, but we are not addressing the key issue. Price determines production. So I kept sitting here and every single thing, every statement, beautiful statement you make, I'll ask myself, then what? Okay? So you produce, so we get chloris, so we get very good Bacteria molata, so we get good dairy supplements. Then what? When the price of milk is still at 700 shillings.
But what is your cost of production?
My cost of production per litre is at least 1,800
Can you reduce that?
a litre. That's exactly where I'm going.
Because that is the discussion we have had with farmers.
It's why I'm going.
In Uganda, no.
He's a farmer, let him submit.
Are you through?
No, I am not. But it's
Okay.
very,
You have a
very
minute.
to
sorry.
someone when
Okay,
they're
sorry.
This is what I'm thinking. I am a farmer, and Ben and a few people have been to my farm. I buy cotton seed cake at 1,200 shillings or 1,000 shillings a kilo. I do my own dairy mill. I supplement with mineral blocks. I've even tried to go as far as Nairobi to bring mineral blocks here in Uganda. But I bought salts at 1.2. URA charged me 900,000 shillings in taxes. Immediately when the president the president said the day before, there are no taxes on agricultural inputs. I went with my big head and I told the guy at URA, there are no taxes. Say, we are president. Ekitabo chichino, munyogo gugwawan. And that's how much they are charging. Okay? What am I doing to cut that? I am trying not to buy cotton seed cake. I am planting Gliricidia. I am planting all these Lupuna. I have bought it from him. I am planting Caliandra. I am planting all these things on my small piece of land to help cut down production. I mean, cost of production. But at the end of the day, I'm in this business to make money. We have to look at the price of milk. This strategy, this meeting, is going to work very well for Pearl, because Pearl is buying its milk at 800 shillings a litre. You are talking about the hundreds of millions of dollars that is earned in Uganda. Do I get any of that? Do I feel that on my farm?
No.
If you look at the cost of setting up a cow barn at my farm, it's 480 million shillings. Okay? I don't get that from anyone. I am a businessman who is looking at trying to set up a retirement thing when I grow old as Ben. Okay, and I
Ben is
Okay.
I would like to start now.
We've
So
heard you. Let's
we
see.
have to go from bottom up. All these policies and everything you have to address, what does the farmer get out of it?
Your point is taken note of.
Yeah.
Let's hear from the best farmer,
Thank
and
you so
then we
much.
shall hear from you. And
Thank you
then
so
him.
much.
Yeah.
I don't think I differ much from him. All inclusive. Price. It's key. I don't know. Is it by design? You see, we now have pearl in this conference. They produce latter. They maybe have a foreign investor. We have very many Ugandan investors in dairy. Where are they?
One of
We
them
have
is
just-
there.
Oh,
Yes, sir.
now you're not talking.
I'm listening.
Yes, divide.
Exactly. We have Mega. We have there are many.
Amos.
I'm sure all of them were invited, but maybe in one way or
You
another.
understand? Tomosi.
GBK.
You understand? I don't know where. Let me even start. Do you actually have a round table where you sit and you all agree that this farmer betting now, not a processor, we must not exceed 700? I have my milk, but you determine the price. Really?
You don't have a lobbying
Francis
body.
Mafia
That's what he
syndicate.
was talking
You
about.
understand?
Yeah.
Why?
Yes.
You have your own thing, but someone out there is like, you know what? It's like $1. You know, now I am going to pay 680. That is what the PAL has said. So farmer, very sorry, we are going to give you 500 because PAL is giving us 600. Oh, please. Seriously, yes, PAL is exporting, yes, indeed, but the farmer is not feeling this.
Yeah, let me
But-
submit something little on that. Because of the system we are using, Uganda, we are not using quota system. Like, let's say you see in Israel where they regulate prices, or in Canada where farm organizations sit and they determine that now this is what we are going to charge the farmer and this is the cost of production. Like what Joseph was asking, if we are to ask anybody based on facts, what is the cost of producing 1 liter of milk in Uganda? You will hear varying answers, and most of them actually guesswork. They are not based on anything. It's not valid. And you see, you cannot now, based on that, to convince somebody that now we need this particular price. Because one will ask you, how much do you need to break even per liter of milk? We do not have records. There are so many things really that need to be worked on. But for purposes of this discussion,
Yes.
I think we cannot determine the price.
No, we may not
We
determine.
can only take advantage by producing more.
No.
Do that.
No.
Mr. Chairperson,
Yes.
Mr. Chairperson,
Let's
I think
hear
I'll also
from
stand.
Let's find another.
Yes, yes.
Farmers stand.
From what I have heard, I'm here as a farmer.
Yes. So I will
And
tell
I'm
you
here as a
farmer,
breeder.
Not as a bureau.
There are two things we need to do. He beautifully put it. Can we suggest that we get farmer groups
Yes.
that will have a voice that is heard? Such that, because government is giving subsidies and tax holidays to PAL, can we also have a voice and say, for us here in Imbarala Chiruhura, we cannot sell our milk because the cost of production has been this, and we receive the subsidies from government. If nobody is buying our milk at this, government give us money, we also begin processing our milk and sell it at 3,000. When the lady was making her submission, I almost said, what is happening with us? I sell my milk today. Me, I don't take tea in hotels except if it has been given to me. I cannot sell my milk, my liter at 700 shillings. Come and take a cup which is at 10 or at 5,000. So if we cannot establish a hotel in Imbarala where we also sell our tea at 5,000, and that is possible.
We take note of what you say, but we are looking at the entire value chain, not only farmers.
But Chairman,
No,
that's
the farmers are the value
Excuse
chain.
me.
Excuse me, I still have the floor. Let me finish.
They're not doing.
I'm very sorry. Because when it gets this, I become emotional. One, I'm a processor, I don't mind, but I am also a farmer. You understand? But what makes government think that actually PAL and the rest are more of an investor than me who is providing the raw material? Why? I mean, when a farmer talks, he's like, no, you don't know how much it's cost. I said, why? Why do you think that we don't know how much it costs for us to actually bring up a product? And then you are saying here that, yes, you always be cheated because you don't know. No. I don't think so. No. Let me tell you, all this you are planning is because there is somebody somewhere raising a cow. Yes. But if I decide to hold back and leave, then that means
let's hear from Silva, and then.
But I think
we
if we go into the issues of prices and all that,
the floor is yours.
We may not finish it here. The bottom line is, let's look at the way, as farmers, how we can take advantage of our power that is within our reach. First of all, reduce our cost of production. We have suggested, let's adopt the cooperative model, let's form groups. We enhance our bargaining power. That's one. So moving forward, the issue of price, we know price determinants. We can't discuss them in this room and come up with a solution. It's a demand and supply issue. The other day, maize was 200, today it's 1,300. So we can't here really discuss. Let's discuss things which are within our means as farmers.
Excuse me, let's have one meeting.
Let's discuss issues.
On animal products.
It's okay.
Yeah, let's chairman, let's move forward.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Also,
Mr. Chigos.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I will not repeat what has been discussed.
Yes.
I would suggest that we also adopt something to do with the cost of finance in this country. Yeah, I think that's not what has not been captured. The cost of finance, we hear Uganda Development Bank being recapitalized. We hear there is some credit facilities through Bank of Uganda to commercial banks. Still, we don't see this money. When we get it, it is still very costly. Yeah. So I want to suggest, and we hear cooperative banks trying to be revived. So whatever the model government should take, we should start discussing about reducing the cost of finance. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I will give one more opportunity to somebody who is contributing to the issue of milk volumes and products. Okay, let's hear from
I'm also here after you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I don't know how the discussion, how it's structured, but I thought we would go along the value chain.
Yes.
Production, then look at aggregation,
Exactly.
look at transport, look at enterprise level, processing, finance, and so on. But I'll just jump in somewhere. Just the point that the last gentleman mentioned about finance, access to finance, and the mechanisms by which agricultural finance is being availed to agricultural players, especially for, say, the dairy industry. My big point there is that we have an agricultural credit facility, and it's being channeled through commercial banks. Well, UDB too is a commercial bank. It's a development bank. Strongly and realistically thinking, I think there has not been a very big push in the recent past towards an agricultural bank. Because having an agricultural bank is very important because it will have that speciality of understanding the mechanisms within the agricultural industry and what kind of financing the industry needs, and also the dynamics within the agricultural sector. So to me, I think there should be a very strong push towards establishing an agricultural bank or reviving the cooperative bank, so to speak. My other point is about, I listened carefully to the discussion about price. We cannot set price, we cannot set price. But there are systems and mechanisms by which you can encourage players, because much as we are in the same value chain, we should not work in isolation. There are supposed to be very strong relationships between the players within the value chain. And one of the biggest impact on the relationships in the value chain is exactly about price. Do not dismiss price. So one of the key systems within the value chain should be the formation of industry associations. I remember a few years ago, we used to have a dairy processors association, and there was also a microprocessor association. And we would encourage these associations to become more like the voice, more like the platform through which they can negotiate with the producer and come up with some sort of an agreed price. And also to understand how is each one operating. If we just leave them to operate in isolation, then you are going to have a lot of price, I don't know, call it price discrimination. A farmer in Chihuahua gets 300, a farmer in Tungamo gets 700. That is definitely unfair. And yet their costs of production are almost the same. We used to have the Uganda National Dairy Traders Association. It's a huge component of the dairy industry. Remember, 80% of the milk produced or marketable passes through informal channels. And that is one area I want us to explore a little bit more in terms of this discussion. But I don't think, I don't have much time.
Okay, thank you.
But again, the traders play a very big role because most of the milk then purchased, say, within the environs of Kampala is not from the supermarkets. The milk that they're taking in hotels is from the traders.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you very much.
Let's hear from the processor.
Yeah, my submission is on the issue of policy when it comes to product sourcing and marketing. In here, processors are really at a disadvantage because of poor regulation. You find there is an unfairness. In a way, a raw milk processor is out there in the market buying the same product. He's not subjected to any tax. He's free to do whatever he wants to do to the milk, and he will still target the same consumer. And the government is looking on, nothing is being done. A processor will comply, do as per regulation, get certification. He wants to export for the country to earn that forex at the end of the day. But is again subjected to a lot of taxation. So here what I'm trying to say is we need to enforce. I know the regulations are there, but government needs to really put in much more effort to enforce the regulation of the dairy sector players, especially trade who are dealing in the raw milk trade. There is a lot of unfairness in the field. So we need to have something done.
Let me even stand up. I'm Dr. Ruben Kawaga from Dairy Development Authority. When he talked of regulation, I had to stand up.
Yes.
Because that is a touchy issue.
Yes.
But I'll begin, then I come to regulation. I need us to appreciate how far the dairy industry has come. You remember the days of dairy cooperation, the liberalization, Brookside came in, and now we have over 100 processors in their different categories, large, medium, and the cottage industry. And here we are now, our eyes have been opened that the dairy business is lucrative, which is good. And that's why we're deliberating. So what do we have to focus on, especially with our farmers? I think we also need to have some mindset change. We are talking of cooperatives, which is a very key aspect in this value chain. But many of our cooperatives, some of them are not active. Those which are active, even the members don't take their milk there. We need these cooperatives to engage actively in the value chain, not to leave the value addition to the pearls, to the what. I'm happy the best farmer is already engaged.
10 years down the road.
And she has testified the beauty she's getting out of that. How about if our farmers, through their cooperatives, added value to their milk? Because currently, the 2.5 billion liters we are producing, 80% of course finds way in the market. But it's only a mere 33% which is processed. All the 67 is sold as raw milk. And now that takes me to his point. Government has already moved, it has already put an enabling environment. The unfairness, the unfair competition I'm talking about, government has dropped VAT on processed milk in a bid to encourage processing and to encourage people to consume processed milk. There is a presidential directive to ban sale of raw milk in cities and municipalities. That is opening room for more value addition. Let's encourage our farmers through their cooperatives at whatever level to add value.
Yes.
Because whatever value you add on to the milk, you cannot go wrong.
Yes.
Cottage industry, we are looking at the Indians. What is the biggest industry there? Cottage. They are making butter, they are making what? Because there is no way we shall break even if we don't add value at whatever level to the milk. We cannot debate over price. These are things which are self-limiting. Because if you don't add value, you will never fetch more. And you'll be pushed out of the system. So our farmers must change attitude. Let's go into value addition. Right now, we are mass skilling the youth, women, whichever, through the Entebbe Direct Training School. Let's all our farmers come, let them learn value addition. Cottage industry is a very big, because it will not outcompete Rwanda, it will not outcompete PAL. The 67% is still there for us, but we are leaving it.
I think that is well noted.
Can I
For
just...
purposes of gender balance, let's hear from her, and then we come up with the working group.
Am I the only one who didn't listen to her, who listened to her? People want to do cottage industries. People want to process. What he's leaving out is the process of actually getting certified. They go ahead and ban you from supermarkets to sell what you have processed when they don't have a place in Kisoro for you to go and certify. Meanwhile, you have to carry your yogurt and show them. Unless you carry the machine and start making it from Boyogerere. Unless that is handled, I don't know what DDA is talking about, can actually. Cottage industry is discouraged in this country. Yes. You can't get a stamp on UNBS. You can't carry your little machine and start making yogurt for weeks waiting for them to process and check if the quality is good. Unless they go down to the grassroots, then it's like they are discouraging cottage industry. That is what the farmers are trying to say. There's nobody to speak for them. And all the fancy things they are doing at DDA are only just attracting, again, rich people's kids studying these things are not doing anything about.
Thank you. Now,
we are running out of time. We have to get up with
we go now.
remember.
But this should
Yeah,
be
well, that's done.
Standardization of
If you allow me to combine both submissions into one. Let's make standardization and grading of milk and milk products
localized.
Easy by working by government, because it is one government, by the government institutions making it easier for people to get certifications. So MAIF should work closely with the NBS to ensure that it is the process is easier and affordable.
Affordable.
Lastly, Chairman.
Okay,
my last remark. I want to testify. Last year, I asked the Minister of Finance. He was the guest of honor somewhere. I asked him, Honorable Matia Kasaija, when it comes to crop and armyworm, the Minister of Finance avails, it takes it 1 week or less than that to avail a solution and funding. For the dairy sector and the livestock sector, it has taken 3 years, the tick resistance issue up to now. Why is it so? Because even the minister, the honorable minister for animal industry was just next to her. What the gentleman said is like, you guys have no lobbying power. You are poor lobbyists. I said, but sir, you're also a livestock farmer. I said, no, I cannot play my guitar and dance at the same time. I can't drum and dance at the same time. So, as a nailer, we need the establishment of breed societies. Lastly, as a solution, or part of the solution, as long as we don't create an alternative market, which is the cottage industry. In this case, as long as we do not train or create a generation that can consume our milk, then we have to basically depend on the Indians and what they say. The SNV introduced a good program. They even went ahead. We've been, Mr. Chiria can attest to that. We went and enacted and lobbied for the policy to change for the school parent-led milk feeding program. Is it possible that this can be captured, that the government can push, that there can be a policy where our pupils, our students, our children,
Our yogurt.
our yogurt can actually be pushed to schools as an alternative market?
Yes.
To schools as a pasteurized.
As additional market.
As additional market. Also an alternative market to Jessa, because if he has a competitor, then I'll be able to have, to sell 200 liters here, 200 liters.
Excuse me, I think Ben, your point is taken note of.
Chairman, I wanted to
I want us to go
to add the second leg to his submission. There was something that was captured. You know, farmers can always add value. But what are we doing to enable farmers access finances to invest in that area that could add value?
I think that point is captured on agricultural financing. I would like to suggest that
Chairman,
we select the discussion will continue. Yes. Mr. Mwini, that point is captured. Let's have a working group. And I would suggest that we get representatives from processors who are here, farm organizations. We can have one representative from the NGO and the private sector service providers. Let's have like 5 members of this working group. Others will be co-opted from the ministry as suggested by the conveners. We are coming up with a working group that is going to digest all these issues and then come up with something that is concrete. In the next meeting, this will be presented to you. I think that is the way forward. So we can have like 5 members. Is that agreeable?
I would suggest
6 or 7. 6 or 7. Okay, so if we can have 1 from the processor, 2 from farm organizations, 1 from the NGO, then the private sector service providers can also have like 2. I think those would be 6.
I would suggest 3 from farm organizations.
Even regulation.
Regulation, we have DDA.
3. Regulation, let's have 1. Private sector service providers 2. NGO, okay, 1. Farm organizations 2.
I would suggest 3 or 4, please.
Then we have only 1 processor. We can have 1. Okay, we have 2.
Chairman, Chairman, I would suggest more farm organizations.
No.
More to that, I'm representing even the farm because I am both.
So please suggest names. So this is 3. So we have 7.
And volunteers.
Yes, doctor.
I volunteer for service provider. Just 1.
Okay.
Myself.
Yourself.
Organizations.
Two.
We have Uku also.
Where's Uku? Uku. We can have Uku and LDF.
Okay. So Mr.
We can have Uku and LDF, but Chairman, you would like to have 3.
Let's have 3 chairs.
No,
3 farm organizations.
2.
No.
So we have
need more voice from the farmers.
Ebo is representing Uku.
LD.
Are you representing
LDF.
Small scale farm.
Small scale farm. We want 2 from farm organizations.
No, my name is Queen. Ben Queen.
You said private sector?
Private sector service providers. Then we have DDA. DDA. Sir, can I have your name?
I'm Dr. Ruben
Okay.
Service provider.
Chairman, service providers is
Mr.
done?
Mwiri.
Yeah, we volunteer, I
Okay.
think so, one slot.
Then the farmers.
Don't forget the farmers.
That's why
They need to have like 4 farmers.
Then we have one processor.
Farmers.
Then you know the processor.
Is representing us.
Me, I
Farm
have
organizations.
my friend, twin. Yeah. Am I there?
As a best farmer, maybe.
No, no, no.
And the process.
So,
Processor.
Joseph, you are
This
going
one is
to
a
represent the
processor.
NED.
Processor, I think.
For us, farmers, we think this one is the processor.
Really?
The chairman has all.
So I'll read to you the names. Dr. Dan Semambo, you are representing the private sector. Ahmed Mwiri, Engineering Solutions, that is the private sector.
Medi.
service
Medi.
provider.
Medi.
Medi. Private sector service providers. The regulator will have Dr. Kawaga. Then farmers, we have Ebo Arion from Muku, Ben Twine from LDA.
Farmers?
Yes, farm organizations. Then the processor, we have Silva Turahikayo from JESA. And then the NGO, we have Joseph Kiria.
No, but they were
No,
raising some
farmers.
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 Okay.
So the farmers, we must be in organization.
Now,
Of
you know what?
course, that's what it means.
You know what beats my understanding? Hey.
She's a processor.
No. Let me tell you. What is all this you are planning to get the milk from the farm. And you don't want the farmers. I am here, I'm the farmer, and I also process.
Okay.
So, what are you saying?
So we thought you are under farm organization.
No. Let me come there as a farmer.
And the majority of Ugandans,
You are all targeting that milk, and you
and
don't want
remember, we are talking of forming groups
My names
and
are Betty
cooperatives.
Bazira.
So we don't have the,
Small-scale
if we have them, then they are not reaching.
Small scale.
Oh my God.
No, but you are here as a small scale processor.
Yes?
A farmer.
You are here as a small scale
Don't mind
processor.
farmers, I will
But
say
farmers
to
have
you.
been represented by Ebo.
By April.
Yes.
Ebo and Twin.
Uku.
Yes. Isn't it a farm organization?
It's a cooperative
Okay.
union.
The biggest.
Anyway, I'm there.
Yes.
That's the most important thing.
As long as they deliver.
Saying we start organization, so they are already there.
No, we are already there.
Maybe they
I
are
wanted to have 9 at least. I wanted to be there.
No, we have, I'm going to read the names again. We have Dr. Semambo. We have Mr. Ebo Arion from Muku. We have Ben Twine from the Livestock Development Forum. We have Dr. Kawaga Ruben from DDA. Medi Mwiri from Engineering Solutions. Silva Tuyahikayo from JESA. Joseph Chiria from SNV. And Betty Bazira for small-scale processors. And then, of course, for us as conveners, it's by default. So that is 9.
How can I be default?
No, ABI.
FBI.
Okay.
FBI then not select finance.
For you already there. For you already there.
But the fact is, it is an accident.
I have
Accident is an accident.
media supplements. It is because they are drunk, that's why they produce more milk.
But I'm coming up to So
Animals are
why
drunk
not
because
come
they
in?
eat
We amend the
that supplements at night. So they are considered. So why should I do
That's service provider.
Service provider.
So we need to look at the data. Yes.
And you're a farmer.
I am.
Sorry, I'm
And you?
ZER.
And today adding you.
No, B. Yeah. They said they are not in groups.
The groups are not saying that you're going to.
So we are done. I would like to take this opportunity. Members, let's conclude this meeting and then we can have private discussions.
Okay.
No, we have to join and we join the rest.
Yeah, go on.
I want to take this opportunity to thank you for all your contributions. They've been very healthy contributions. We do not underrate any suggestion, and that's why we've selected a smaller committee really to discuss more and come up with something better. But thank you for sparing time and also expressing interest, especially in the diary. We appreciate you, and next time when we invite you, please turn up in your usual big numbers. Thank you. I wish you journey masses until next time. Yes, sir.
You have all our contacts. Yes, we need to reach out.
Yes, for the ones I've recorded here, I have the contacts.
But this group here is not represented. We have created our own group, me and Afande Kawesa.
That's the one in private sector.
Yeah. But
Farmers are not represented.
Let me have your contact.
Not nice.
But we have from the registration, we can always get
You
your
are our representative.
from the registration.
Directly.
Okay, let me take it.
They will sit on your numbers.
0701
As long as animals are happy,
696
we'll get more milk.
453.
But those animals which are drunk like
Our
from the
foods
bowl
at
and
gmail.com.
feeds,
AWA
I don't encourage.
foods.
Farmers are the most passionate.
Our secretaries.
Supplements
Now
from
informally.
Nairobi, they are drunk animals.
You carried out
And that's
research
why
on mash.
they are stressed.
Called the brewers
So,
mash. How many beer factories do we
I will
have?
not
Do
have
they have
to-
capacity?
No, with the proper machine, they can always clean it. You drink water that comes from sewage, guys.
If you went to
You
the
can process it.
brewery,
you are processing, but you see what
I'm called Robert Alexis Saville. I'm a scientist, animal scientist working with NARO. And I'm just completing my PhD in animal nutrition, specializing in poultry.
I'm William Sally. I'm a food industry consultant by occupation, food technologist by profession. I'm also a senior lecturer at Uganda Christian University.
My name is Mahogany Masi. I'm a member of the team at Uganda Business Alliance.
My name is Rafila Karima. I'm a communications officer at Uganda National Farmers Federation. So I work with a group of farmers. So I know their cries and things. I'm also an aspiring farmer.
My name is Javi. I'm from Mark's Farms here. We have a coffee farm. We are planning to begin poultry also.
Coffee?
Yeah.
Thank you. Robert Odeke is my name. I work for a network for the development of agricultural cooperatives in Africa. And I studied the cooperatives myself, and I'm a trainer and an examiner. I've been lecturing at the cooperative college for some time. And I'm interested at Tororo.
Okay.
And I'm interested in farming. Quite a big weekend farmer. Weekend because I stay in Kampala, but every weekend I'm in Busia.
Are you a telephone farm?
No, weekend. I farm grains mostly, but I want to come to poultry. Also, besides the grains.
Nice to know you all. I am Anne Christine Sewanyana.
I am a teacher. I am actually a teacher of public speaking. I've been judging all the speakers, including you. But I'm also active in UAA. I do training, and when the pitching, that elevator pitch, that's what some of the things I train in. So you want my services, I'm available. But I'm here because I'm very interested in poultry. Yes, it is. I want to add value to chicken. But before I add value to chicken, I want to grow my own chicken. Yes, I have a restaurant and I want to use my own chicken to feed. That's
that
how
would be adding value. Absolutely. That would be adding value.
Yes, I don't want to go and buy somebody else's chicken. Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. I see the table is really full of a lot of knowledge, experience. I know we have prospects who want to just join. Some of us are farmers, others are researchers, experts. So I think we are going to have very good deliberations. I don't know who can volunteer to help us take minutes for this meeting.
You're recording.
Oh, okay. All right. So I think we are going to follow the guidelines that have been set when we were the other side. They give us some guidelines. So I think they're going to be very useful. So basically they want us to first of all understand what do we need to do to be number one, first of all in the region and then in Africa as the poultry sector. So of course we had some presentations early today where the different players were talking about the challenges that are there, the wins that we've had. So I believe we've picked areas that we think either as the private sector or as individuals or as government, things that we need to do to push the poultry sector forward and to be number one. And that's from that we are going to develop the shopping list. So the shopping list is basically those points that will conclude, and we think they are the reasons that can push us to number one. So I think the best would be that if you have some points, you can give us some points and then we discuss. If you have ideas, what you think.
I will quickly come in from my point of view and from concern. Basically, small farmers, as our people are small farmers in the sense that they do not own huge chunks of land and really big. We have a big poultry farm like the biggest. Usually they are farmers that we would call okay, they do farming in a small way, and that's how they're brought up because it's their livelihood. And my interest is, if we are to make poultry number one, we use like we have been doing before. Everybody does poultry at their own level. Then we collect them together in one place, either for marketing or for value addition. That's how we beat or leapfrog and reach a certain level in a short time. Because I was looking at commercial farming like the way beans is, our peasant farmers may not reach that level. Why? Because they do not own big land and they do not have the capacity in terms of finances, in terms of skill. But how do we come in now if we are coming together as UAA and BNZCA? How can BNZCA help us now? What has been affecting our farmers most, and even me have been at pain because they've lost chicken several times, rare local poultry. But you find when you go home, they say not all of them have died. There was a sickness or coccidiosis or Newcastle disease. You don't know where it comes from. But you maybe a couple of weeks,
They were okay. The following week, all of them are gone. And you know, villagers are sensitive. The market, when this chicken falls sick, you cannot sell them because they strikes once. So, what do we do? Number one, to protect our chicken. We are willing to produce. Like besides that, I did not tell you I'm a politician back home, that I can mobilize at short notice a number of people and say this is where to go, and they come in. But are we sure that we can sustain it? Or they can be like, again, some fever can come and sweep them, and the whole parish or sub-county lose chicken at once. That's number one, and that's my concern. A doctor, we are good, we have you in our midst. Can we guarantee community safety? That I have chicken, these are the precautions. These are the early warning mechanisms that I can detect there is an attack and have them protected. Or this is the way I can immunize them and be sure that after 3 months I can sell this stock. Remember, we are in a village setting, and our places you find you do not have a fence like Kampala where there are wall fence. It is open. Children pass from here, pick mangoes, they go to your farm, you know. So diseases spread easily. That's number one. Number two, then if we do that, can we guarantee market? That has been the problem of our communities, that you can introduce whatever and they produce it. Like now if we say, okay, the way to go is Vinzka, chicken. They're giving you the old chicks. So good, he told me there are now branches everywhere. They're giving you feeds. We have the market. Because if everybody produces, all of us, assuming you're from the parish or sub-county in the village, you have chicken in the thousands years, where shall we sell them? You see, the effect is the market drops down and the price drops. You get it? Those are two issues that if we can address them, for purposes of clarity, one, diseases. And number two, market. Then we can produce any quantity. Then we can produce, and we can, even if you tell the people that please, everybody will know, sure, this thing works. Quickly brings, they all raise them after 3 months or 2 months. Somebody has picked them, he has gone, and he needs to pay the cash. Quickly again he does it because he knows it is sure. But once. Thank you. That's my submission.
Thank you very much. Just to summarize what the main points I'm seeing is that you're suggesting that there's need for the big players to sort of build capacity, a small scale of small farmers, one by organizing them into groups, and then this will help them be supported, for example, through veterinary assistance, and then value addition, and then marketing.
Then marketing is key.
So that will give sort of confidence to the small-scale farmers out there to join the business, and the more they join in these organized groups, then possibly the industry is going to grow. Thank you very much. You raised your hand. Then
thank you very much, sir. In addition to what he has mentioned, I think another issue which should be addressed, which is one of the key issues in the poultry sector, is mainly concerning the feed part, especially the feeds, the ingredients, the adulteration, that's one. Then two, the aflatoxins. They are usually adulterated, whereby somebody will need to go and buy, say, mokene, 50 kilograms but when the real mukene is 30 and the 20 kilograms is just sand. Then on the other hand, these ingredients are kept in such a way that they develop aflatoxins. These ones are very detrimental in that they will cause lower productivity. The production and productivity will go down. Then even the health of the animals, the birds, they can't survive very well when they have those aflatoxins because there is a way they infringe on their health status and the immune response. That is my contribution.
Thank you very much. I think that's a very good point. I think it cuts across, not just even poultry. Though maybe I would still throw the question back to us. How do you think we are going to overcome that problem of ingredient quality or the adulteration or the toxins? Possibly me, I would suggest there should be a lot of education of farmers because at least you may know that if I buy mukene, it may have some maybe sand, or if maybe I buy maize brand which is wet, it may bring about toxins. But some farmers out there, actually majority of the farmers don't know. So I think one of the way forwards we can think about is client education or awareness. And this can be done, I think, by both government and even the private sector. Then also through political leaders, like you're saying, you can gather people in your area, and then because these people listen to the political leaders, it will be one way that you can also share knowledge. Share that hand, then.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, if we are to improve on the production in the poultry sector, this could be through the agitating for change in the education system. Because if people do come out when they are thinking of white-collar jobs, I wouldn't take poultry into part of that. If the education system could be agitated for, this can be done by the big sectors who can support it through government, and they change the education system for people to study those things from down level so that children come out when they have love for animal and poultry. Then also education. Like big companies like we in Zika, through education extension services. These farmers, a lot of people do come into poultry when they just, what they want is profits. But what is your input to get a profit? One, biosecurity. Because I believe a poultry farmer, through biosecurity, you can go through the phase of rearing poultry without using medicine if you have a good biosecurity system. Then the feeding section, that can be done also through extension education, and not only broilers and layers do bring out money, but there is also the local bird. We are putting aside the local bird, which very many people can access, and that is also poultry sector. Through synchronized hatching, many farmers can be taught how to rear local birds, which is also a source of income to many households. It is also putting up the poultry sector, and also then the outgrowers. Being Zika can have outgrowers, Ugachi can have outgrowers. Importance of being an outgrower. You get feeds, you get birds, you get help from these big farmers. Then in the end, you are there is ready market, and this can be an easy way to engage the families into poultry, especially the women and the youth who are always at home. They can do that as the men go on to look for money. So that can be also a good issue to bring up poultry production. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Those are very good points.
Yeah.
She had a hand, then Dr. will come. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I may not be a farmer right now, but I have thought of an idea. Is there a possibility of pooling, like making a pool of production of this feed? Because if these feeds, for example, in your constituents are being produced in one place,
Yes.
there's a possibility of monitoring, supervision, and standard, so that everybody will know. Don't buy it from here. Go and buy it from here, because it is recommended, supervised, it's clear. Instead of letting anybody go and buy from somebody else things that have been mishandled, I think that beings can lead us on that one. You can train, and there's a center, a pool where everybody knows this is where you should go and buy the right feeds.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Just a quick comment on this. It is a good idea to say that we'll maybe have centers where proper feed, centers that have been accredited by maybe government with proper standard. But I think the issue always comes back to usually the cost. With my experience with farmers is that usually, I'm not a farmer, we always try and look for the cheaper costs. Now, whenever there's quality, usually it attracts cost. So I think it will also go back to the education of the masses to know why they may have to pay more for better feed, for example, rather than looking for something cheaper, which at the end of the day may actually get expensive. So I think this is quite a good point, but the government needs to come in and not only set the standards, but also implement and make sure that at least there are those standardized
What if
centers.
government doesn't come?
Yes.
What if it doesn't come?
I'd
We
like
have been
to
waiting
add
for
to-
government for how many years?
I'd like
What
to
if
add
it
to what
doesn't
she's
come?
saying.
Yes.
Of course, we are just brainstorming the feasibility of some of these ideas. Probably a study can be done later. But BNZCA may not have to do it alone. You could engage other private sector
Yes.
actors, pool resources, so that then it becomes easier for
Cooperatives.
people to know that if you want quality feeds, feeds that you can trust, so and so and so are the people who are doing it. So we could pool efforts as a private sector, and then when we build capacity, government will certainly be interested in investing. So it doesn't always, perhaps BNZCA doesn't have to work alone. Perhaps there are other private actors that are interested in feeds, are involved in feeds. But you know, the demand is so huge. BNZCA cannot feed it alone. However, when we pool resources as a private sector, we could be able to even expand the market for good feeds from Uganda to other regions
That's
in
true.
Africa.
Especially if farmers around one area are willing to go into cooperative and put in their own money. It can be done. All you need is
Right.
to lead.
I think it's good. The only issue I see, sorry, I'm being quite negative about this. If you look at, for example, Uganda, we have most of these big players have networks of maybe their retail outlets or shops placed countrywide. But still, most of the farmers choose to source their feeds or whatever from other relatively cheaper sources than going to these formal outlets where they know they will get something that is quite good. So I think it will still go back. Yes, this is very important. We can come out as the private sector. We take the lead, do the education, do the centralization of those points, but still it needs a lot of awareness. And then also, just picking up, one gentleman said something the other side, is that the market that is there sometimes, because if I'm to be on the side of the farmer, the market that is there sometimes, the sort of pricing they get for their end product sometimes doesn't pay for the high quality product. So a farmer sits down and thinks about buying BNZCA quality feed or Ugachik or any other supplier quality feed, but at the end of the day they're not going to reap the profit that they would actually get. So I think we have to handle the whole issue at the entire value chain. Yes, we are looking at the source of the good quality feed, but also at the end, like we are saying, the market. We should be able to, through the cooperatives you're suggesting, at least set certain guidelines that maybe a broiler of live weight 1.5 kilos or this weight should be at least costing so much, so that we don't get farmers being squeezed in the market. Yes, they have invested more in the good quality feeds and inputs, but then they get less. So at the end of the day, will not be helping the industry. Doctor, you had some point.
Yes, thank you very much. Because I've had the discussions, so finding this place is similar to the difficulty of poultry. because, yeah, you know, I was just wondering, Mr. Chairman, when we say poultry, have we considered what poultry is in our context in Uganda that covers many species? I mean, I'm just wondering whether we are concentrating on chicken. I don't know whether that's our take tonight, because it's important. I mean, to guide the rest of the, I mean, the people who are not here. What are we talking about? We want to consider the other species and breeds. That's number one. Then two, if we choose to do chicken, do we recognize that over 90% is really indigenous scavenging chicken? And then we have that other percentage of the commercial, highly specialized lines and what have you. What do we want to talk about? We want to capture all that. Because what happens at the end of the day, the different segments, some things overlap. For example, the input side in terms of vaccination, yeah, an indigenous bird, and a pure line of layer or broiler will require vaccination, just like the indigenous birds, because if they don't, that's why Uganda would be in hundreds of millions of even local chicken. One of the reasons is that segment of the issue of vaccination. I mean, just like our babies, all of us who have had children, they are not Wazungu children, but we must vaccinate them to stay alive. Just like. So I'm wondering, Mr. Chairman, that are we discussing? Are we considered that we're going to do chicken today and chicken commercial, or also with the scavenging and leaving out other poultry? Just guidance, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Doctor. I think that point is very important. It's actually up to the team here to decide, because before you came, this lady actually mentioned that it's very important as we grow the sector not to abandon the indigenous breeds of chicken, because like you said, more than 80% is the indigenous breeds. So we need to just find a way of improving the management of these chickens to see that the small-scale farmer down there, if they can't afford the exotic breed, which actually also attracts even more critics in management and everything, they should be able to manage the local breed but get the best out of it. And then if there's a possibility, of course I know you work with NAGRIC, of our government coming in and helping sort of improve these breeds in some way, maybe through crossbreeding with exotic breeds. Or I see these days there's a dual purpose breeds that have come in that sort of look like the indigenous breed but perform a little more better than our indigenous breeds, and these breeds actually are more resilient than the pure exotic ones. So I think it's a subject that I think it's a point that we can lay out as part of our shopping list. And then also you've talked about the other subspecies under that, the poultry. I think we need to also realize that other subspecies like turkeys, ducks, we may have a big potential, and we're just not looking at it in all our forums and concentrating on broilers and layers. And yet actually, as we're growing the sector to be number one, we may think and say we can have some of the biggest farms, turkey farms in Africa. If you go to the internet and try to read, all these species are mainly done in Europe, and we've abandoned those. You just do it as a by the way, a backyard thing, and yet actually it's one of the things. I think we should lay out that point, that we should also pick up the potential of the other subspecies like turkeys, ducks, which we already have in Uganda, but we can just improve. Thank you very much for that.
Just before we leave, is there anybody here who is doing that already? Turkeys, ducks, can share information with us?
Yeah, I mean, if you go to Eastern Uganda, that is...
Eastern, he comes from there.
The Bateso, that is part of...
Yeah, Palisa area.
Are you doing it?
No, I had quite a number of turkeys, but you know, they're highly marketable. I come from Busia, the border.
They go to
thieves, because I lost some to thieves. And and I quite gave a break because I needed to strengthen the security there.
And also turkeys. Turkeys are poor mothers. If you're to rear turkeys, you have to brood the pullet. They are called poults. You have to brood them. If you fail to brood them, you're not going to get a good deal out of turkeys. They can even lay in the bushes, so when they are born, the babies are not seeing, they are blind. So when they are feeding, you have to put red things so that they can be able to see the feeding. That's why they die at a very tender age. Yes, because they are not seeing. Their feeders have to be bright colored.
And the mother abandons them and just moves.
In fact, now that brings us to the other point of
they are delicate.
After the diseases that attack them. For them, they can endure the diseases, yet the birds
will die.
Like if you have chicken at home and turkeys, you might find that your chicken are dying, yet the turkeys are surviving, yet the diseases are coming from turkeys to attack the chicken. So you have
decide that rare only turkeys or
actually what she's I think referring to is that sometimes they act as secondary hosts. There's a disease, it hides in the turkey, multiplies, then attacks your chicken. So it's taking us back to that issue of technical assistance, the veterinary extension. Our people out there don't know this information. Now we need this, the extension staff from both government and private institutions to go on and tell the farmers this information. And possibly that will be some of the things that will actually help. For example, that line of turkeys to help.
Where does this one fall? Under it?
It is.
It is. The birds are...
Yes.
You do birds.
Yes. The pets do everything, even snakes.
Even rabbits also.
Now, this gentleman mentioned something that we are missing about thieves. It's a very big issue.
Raised it in the morning.
The council raised it.
It's a very big issue.
It's a very serious problem.
So, and it's not only just the physical theft that they will come and steal the chicken and take it, but also the biosecurity breach that happens. Remember this thief, maybe last night he was from another farm.
Wait a minute, what is biosecurity? For us who are not doctors.
Yes. Okay, biosecurity basically is, these are measures that you can put up at your farm to protect both yourself and also the livestock, be it chicken, be it cattle, be it pigs or anything else, from any infectious agents.
To prevent contamination.
Mainly cleanliness.
So what can happen?
I was going to ask like what?
Cleanliness, vaccination, food
disposal of dead ones.
Yes, it's quite a lot. Fencing your place, vaccination, she has talked about it. Having separate, like we are talking about turkeys, not mixing them with chicken, having different age groups separated. But the way you see our indigenous setting, the hen is with the chicks, even the pullets are there and everything. So sometimes there are diseases that will come and they can't kill a hen, but when a chick is exposed, it will come down with disease. So it's very important that as we grow this sector, I don't know how we can term this, but we need to address the issue of theft. So I don't know what sort of solutions can you look at apart from, okay, the normal...
Kill the thieves.
You are breaking the law.
Yes.
Break
Thank you
their
very much,
legs.
sir. I have about 4 comments, but they are rising from the comments you have been made. To start with, I'll start with the cooperatives. The issue is having the mindset, changing the mindset. So when you talk about our the rural farmers, it's really change their mindset that you are producing for a market. Start from the market. So when it is in their mind that they produce for a market, they're going to do the right thing, and they are sensitized. They should be trained that you don't do ABCD because you're going to lose the market. Now, the local chicken is a very good example. I know of some 3 or 4 people who are producing the local chicken on a commercial basis. One farm has about 5,000 animals, 5,000 birds. Another has about 10,000. Yes, yeah, and you can buy day-old chicks, even 3-day-old chicks, because they even address the problem of brooding. If you have a problem of that, they can send you chicks which are 3 weeks old. They have gone through that stage, and they are already vaccinated, and they give you even vaccination regime. So it's the mindset. That's something that we are addressing a market. We are producing for the market. That's the most important thing. Whether you are small, think about the market. So that's what. The second one is the issue of quality and standards. There is worry about aflatoxins and so on, but it's all related to quality. That you cannot make good feeds if you have poor quality raw materials. But if the farmers are sensitized about this, how do aflatoxins arise? Because the grain has not dried properly. And we are always talking about this. So they should be taught about what are the implications of not doing this. Thirdly, standards. There's been a lot of talk about standards, except that we are not aware of them. I'm talking authoritatively because for 17 years, I was chairman of the technical committee under UNPS for producing food and agriculture standards. These standards are there. When you go to the website of UNPS and you look at the standards catalog, those standards are there. Feeds for ostrich, feeds for poultry, feeds for rabbits, everything is there. But it is the sensitization, being aware of this. And for 7 years, I was chairman of the board of UNPS, which brings me to the point about having one place where we can produce these feeds and so on. That is why when the best farmer raised the issue, when she was complaining about the Q mark, that Q mark is supposed to address that issue. That you have a facility which is producing feeds. UNPS comes in to see that you are producing these feeds consistently. And when they are satisfied, then they give you the Q mark. That when you go to buy feeds, you just have to look at the Q mark. Then you know that meets the standard. If it does not, if you have a problem, you have a right to go and sue the company where you bought that, because the guarantee that it has. When you go and you find that it has the Kenyan mark, then you know it meets the standard. When it meets the East African, in fact, we should be sensitized about these East African standards, because there is mutual recognition that you don't have to test Kenyan feeds, as long as they have the Kenya Bureau of Standards mark. Same thing with Tanzania, same thing with Burundi, same thing with Rwanda. So it is now the issue of sensitizing people. And by the way, getting the Q mark is not as costly as it used to be. In fact, I'm going to ask I'm going to task the chairman the executive director of UNPS to sensitize the people about this. The public is not aware. That is not as expensive as it used to be, because UNPS is supposed to help people to do business, not to hamper them. The Q mark is there to ensure that there is fair practice, that there is fair trade, that you are not ripped off. So these are the issues that we should be addressing. Thirdly, we have talked about indigenous. We don't usually address the issue of eggs. Eggs are product of poultry, and you can have value addition to eggs. In fact, you can if you produce, for example, powdered eggs, you get more money from the ordinary egg. These are things that we should be looking at. Now, lastly, I'm a teacher. I'm a university lecturer. But we are encouraging now, we want to have a program where industry can tell us their challenges. We partner with industry to see that some of these are researchable areas
that we get students to address these areas. The students get the qualifications, and the client gets the results. It's a win-win situation. The problem may be now, the challenge will be now getting the funding. I used to work for NARO. Now NARO's research agenda is drawn by the stakeholders. You are the ones who tell NAGRIC. NAGRIC want you to do this. And then NAGRIC will be happy because there will be justification to go to government now. We need money because the stakeholders have demanded this. Why should we? I always feel very bad. Why should we import broilers from India when NAGRIC is there? Why don't you develop our own? Huh? These are the challenges that we should give them. I'm a teacher, I can talk a lot.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Those are quite useful points. Maybe just I'll add something small about the value addition. I think it can also go across on the side of the chicken. Yes. It doesn't have to be just the broilers, but even beginner's chicken.
Yes.
It can be the broilers, it can be the layers. And I had a chance to attend some of the meetings of the Poultry Association of Uganda. And what we're encouraging government is, yes, the big players like Binzika will set up an abattoir, but certain groups of farmers can also be assisted with a smaller abattoir, which is not a state-of-the-art, high-tech abattoir, but small abattoirs in various regions where they can bring their chicken and maybe it's slaughtered at a small cost, and then it's sort of a value addition so that they can get more money from their products. And this will also go for the eggs, because it doesn't have to be that you need a lot of money to invest in proper facility, millions of dollars. It can be a small thing that maybe the government can go ahead and subsidize and do for farmers. I think that would be very good.
Before you leave this, what is the difference in your kind of slaughtering and my kind of slaughtering? I want to know, the local farmer has 20, 30 birds. Why should they put them on a bus to take them to an abattoir, to slaughter them and then they take them to the market? You have to entice the farmer about that one, when they have a knife.
To ensure, because if you're going to sell to the public, to ensure quality and consistency, they should be in one place. That you have one person, you can have a vet who can come and inspect that the quality. Because somebody can bring a diseased bird for slaughtering. Now, there you are putting the lives of people at risk. So that's why that initially, at one time, I was not very much in favor of everybody adding value. Because there you are going to have a problem of ensuring quality. That's why the issue of cooperatives now comes in. Cooperatives can own a processing plant. In fact, you can even have a state-of-the-art factory. If you got cooperators, together you raise a lot of money. You raise a lot of capital. So, let you have another Binzika. But not everybody doing individually. You must have one place. Then you'll be employing qualified people to make sure that you get the right thing, the right product, and be able to get the UNBS quality mark as a factory owned by the cooperative. Yes.
And maybe just to add on, she was asking why should the farmer invest in moving their chicken to an abattoir, which is certified. Now, if you're going to sell your live chicken, I'll give an example. You will sell a kilo maybe at 6,000 shillings. But if this chicken is taken to the abattoir and slaughtered maybe at 500 shillings, your kilo transforms from the 6,000 to about 9 to 10,000 shillings. People buy that chicken. Yourselves, you go to supermarkets and buy this chicken at higher prices than what people are selling the live birds at. So it's something that is very important that as going forward, we should really think about doing value addition, but not, like he said, not as just individuals, because we may not have the capacity, but in groups or cooperatives, or we should encourage big players like Binzika that have facilities if they really see value in it, they can end up having farmer groups that collect their chicken, or Binzika buys it off in form of a scheme, and then it's slaughtered, and then they get better money. Yeah, so I think that's a very important point.
And I also think, now it's not related to what you were saying, but again, to quality. We are going to have to find a way, and really probably this is something the government can do with the private sector, of incentivizing production of quality products, poultry products. Why? At the end of the day, and I understand the argument against the certification issue, because the fact is, I know we have engaged UNBS. They have had several meetings with the Uganda small-scale industry, and they have reduced the cost of certification, but it's still high for the typical processor, because they're focusing on, I think, on processors. Farmers, probably, I'm not quite sure. Even then, the reason these people are a little bit afraid, it's because they don't have the money, and I understand that. But at the same time, we've got major actors like Nzika, Yokuku, and some other people. The question is, how do we then turn to the market, the consumers, and build demand for quality products? It's easier, nowadays I walk into a supermarket, because now I am much more cautious of aflatoxins and the effect of cancers. It's easy for me to actually look for the Q mark, because I know that these things are killing us, and it's the poor people who are suffering with these diseases. We cannot afford them. So could we perhaps work with the government and invest in consumer education? When we have more people who are cautious and are more concerned about quality, the market will organize itself. Because at the end of the day, I'm not going to buy your product if I know that it has got diseases, or it's infected by this and this and that. So investment in incentivizing, first of all, the farmers, at the same time, consumer education. Now, there was a project that I know Siatini was working on. This was on crops, maize and simsim. They also worked with EAGC, the East Africa Grain Council, and it was about self-regulation. They were trying to promote self-regulation. And I'm thinking, can that be applied to the poultry subsector, where we get the major actors to actually work together to ensure that whatever they are buying from these small, as off-takers, whatever they are buying from these small farmers, meet the quality standards? Is there a way we can do that? Of course, the challenge of the maize people was that so many people produce maize. So, controlling the market when you're the bigger actors is a little bit difficult, because so many produce, so many can get their products on the market, which is a little bit different when it comes to those who are dealing in vanilla. I think the control system is a lot easier than if you're dealing in maize. So, but even then, it becomes an opportunity, something to think about. Can we promote self-regulation, where the bigger actors in the poultry sector come together and perhaps build the capacity of the smaller, small-scale farmers? The small-scale farmers will know that they cannot sell, they cannot find a market for their products. They cannot sell to Nzika unless ABCD is done. The consumer, we have to understand different segments when we're talking about the customers. Who are we selling to? Who are these farmers who are willing to sell something that is diseased? Who are they selling to? The supermarkets. We've got supermarkets, we've got restaurants, but can we find a way of working with the market, the retailers, the distributors, to make it difficult? Perhaps that will promote quality along the value chain. It becomes difficult, but some of those measures are important to explore.
All right, thank you very much. Yeah, yes, Doctor.
I'm glad I'm here to listen to people talk about this subject. I wanted to just find out, Mr. Chairman, whether we all know that by and large in Uganda, where chicken is expensive, and on top of the whole world. I mean, I've been fortunate, I've traveled quite a bit. Actually, between me and my wife, we have covered the world practically. But I've never known why you go to places and what you can really work with on a daily basis is chicken. However, you come to Uganda, when in these local, whatever you're having, beans 4,000, are they about? I mean, if beans is 4,000, meat will be about maybe six, fish about 7, and this one 10,000 or 12. Now, at the end of the day, I'm talking about stimulating consumption, which really at the end of the day will really those investments. I mean, I'm just wondering when I saw what Winzik has done. I don't know what Secretary is doing. I don't know who, whatever. I don't know who else is doing whatever. Those investments, if we do not stimulate consumption, what are they for export? Maybe they are. Because what other countries would do, I think Winzik, who, what? Secretary, I think, tried that. When we were growing up and we were studying in Europe, we were eating wings. Yeah? It was a delicacy, but very cheap. Wings, you know. I mean, they cut up and they give you chicken wing a kilo. You are really at it for quite some time, rather than going for these very, very expensive. I stayed in Japan for some time, and the kilo of meat is between $161 and $1,000 per kilo.
Of beef?
Yes.
Of beef?
Yes.
1,000 Japanese yen.
No. Dollars. US dollars. 161 to 1,000.
What about pork?
Now, those are much cheaper. This is what I'm talking about. With chicken, you do your a few dollars. You have your good piece of whatever. In Uganda, why is it that chicken is very, very, very expensive? When we were growing up, we were told about 7 days. When you take what? Is it the soup and whatever? 7 days, not the 7 days system. So I don't know whether that explains whatever. But the point is, many people, when we just introduced Croiler, there was that story of selling a cock at 40,000 when it's about 6-7 months, and those were the stories. Now, before when people came down with the excitement, then somebody buys from you 100 chicks. Then he starts saying, I don't have market. You say, market for what? This is 40,000 we hear of. You say, who told you that your neighbors can afford 40,000? Why should you, a scavenging bird, why do you want to sell it at that price? I mean, for because I was told. Now, farmers or producers of these, that's the language they have. I think you talked of mindset and what have you. I think as a sector, a lot has got to be said to our people. First of all, that actually because look, when the pricing is like that at table, I mean, it goes backwards to the input supplier. You say, okay, you can sell it at 40,000. So my vaccine, which should ordinarily be the cheapest thing, vaccines, because of the volumes and what, they're supposed to be very, very cheap, but they end up being very expensive because he knows you also sell very expensive and whatever. But before you know, you are not even getting the customers. Some birds are overgrowing. I mean, a bird that would be gone now, the guy keeps it for another 4 months and sell at the same price because he's looking for a particular of 30, 40, 50,000 and what have you. So, I mean, when now Newcastle shows up, everything is gone. So what is the blame? Oh, the vaccines are what? This is what? We have no market and what have you. Who told you to produce which has no market?
And you might find that veterinary doctors open up veterinary shops. After opening them up, they get licenses from National Drug Authority. Then they give the shop to the family members who are not aware of the diseases you are going on with which vaccine. So when I come to you, I want to look at
anything.
So, in the end of it, I'll rare birds which are not vaccinated of Newcastle at the time I needed it.
Right.
That is also a big problem. And also, we are not breeders. We're just bringing the parent stock, which is rather expensive. If our if our veterinary doctors could find a way of producing these breeds, so that we get our own breeds, and people like they will go to a certain breeding farm and buy a such and such a bird and rear it at home, it would be cheaper. But if someone wakes up, goes to India, brings the broiler bird, transportation to Uganda, also the hatchery expenses, the worker expenses, you might pay that end of it the bird will be 30,000. So I'm buying a bird at 30,000 to slaughter in a restaurant. How much am I going to sell to get out my money?
What about the local birds? Why is it not good?
Local birds are
Is it
scarce.
just local?
You people are rearing local birds. When you wake up in the morning, you open for the local birds to go jump on the trees, look for their own food. But that local bird you're opening the door for to go look for food is having your 1 million. But you can't get your 50,000 from the pocket and leave it to stay on the trees. But you can keep 10 birds to stay on the trees. I saw that in the north.
Anyway, those are good points. I would like to go back, Doctor, to your comment. I think that pricing, it all goes back to the efficiencies that we have in our production systems. You find that those companies you're talking about in America, in Europe, they are very efficient. And it's coming here. The bigger companies are going to grow, become more efficient, produce cheaper chicken, and the small scale guys are going to be pushed out.
But the guy from the other company, the one who made the presentation,
Was the white guy?
Was it Russia?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's what he said. That they eventually, unless the outgrowers, join the bandwagons, so to speak, if they don't, they're going to be eliminated. It's purely business. They are here to make money. It's a business. That's why I'm emphasizing, Mr. Cooperator, Mr. Politician, change the mindset. Let people rear birds for the market. That's where the business aspect, let it come in. Before you, and you're going to have a problem. We shoot first and ask questions later. People don't do their homework. Before you set out, first of all, find out, what am I getting into? What do I need to get there? So you depend on rumors. I heard this bird cost, 40,000. Therefore you jump in. Not knowing the depth of the water. Only to jump in and you drown. So, again, this is where it comes in. People should be sensitized that before you get into any venture, any enterprise, do your calculations. NADS used to do that at the beginning. But then it was complained that was spending a lot of money on workshops and so on and so forth. But when you have people who are illiterate, who are not, you need to start somewhere before they get into a group, to understand why they should get into a group and what they expect from it. Well, these are the issues. Sensitization to change the mindset.
Perhaps they are producing for a market. The question is what market are they producing? They are producing for a market that doesn't care. But a market that is spending a lot on healthcare, a market that is spending a lot on so many things, because the government is not, we don't have insurance, the government is not subsidizing healthcare. So perhaps that's why I kept thinking, developing the market, strengthening consumer protection agencies, that's going to be critical, so that then I can make an informed decision. I am buying this quality of milk. This is the compromise that I'm actually making. It is my health at risk. So I would rather buy from Big Inzika because probably they're meeting certain standards, but I'm not buying from so and so. Then there's a big opportunity. With urbanization, it means that there are more people who are going to become cautious buyers. So if there are more cautious, more health conscious markets, then that means it becomes a very big opportunity. If we do a lot of consumer education, then it becomes a huge opportunity, because the markets will know. If we sit down with the restaurant people, the hotel association, if we sit down, we can create positive market barriers.
because they will know that the hoteliers are not going to buy ABCD. So I either fall in line or I just sell to my neighbor.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, please.
Mercy's presentation.
Yes.
The starting point, there is a draft law, consumer protection bill. It has been lying with the minister's table for more than 10 years. We don't have a law to protect consumers. So the consumer education will be under that umbrella. So this is something that we should demand from government. So that he who, the English saying that he who pays the piper calls the tune.
Yeah.
The fish industry developed where it is, although it has problems, because of that. I used to work in the fisheries department. Now, I was very involved in the development of the fish industry. We decided as a policy that we will not allow the factories to engage in fishing. Let that be done by the artisanal fishermen, the ordinary fishermen. But as long as they meet your quality, let them supply you with fish. And that's what happened. To the extent that now when you go to Europe and you get any fish from Uganda, imported from Uganda, you can trace it to the landing site where it was got from. There's traceability. The fishermen are fishing, and the industries are getting their quality products. The same thing can happen. That if we sensitize the consumers, they will demand quality. But government has got to help in that. First of all, set the framework, the environment, the framework, the conducive environment for the consumers to be sensitized and so on and so forth.
All right. Thank you, Doctor. Actually, it brings us to the point. You've mentioned something to do with export. I see we've tackled quite a lot on the local scene. But as Doctor, you asked how Binzika is going to sort of realize profits after all that investment. We realize that the local market has also a given limit. If we are to grow to be number one in Africa, we should think also outside the borders.
Yes.
Now, what things do you think we can recommend that should be done? Of course, apart from the standards that we've talked about and the regulations, improved quality, is there anything else that we think that can help increase our potential to export volumes and help grow in that direction of export?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, please.
Start with understanding the market. There. What does your market require? Then you work backwards.
All right.
That's the starting point. They want ABCD. We must work towards fulfilling those requirements. And then you see what you can sell.
And indeed, maybe to add, in line with what the doctor raised, the cost of our poultry here. I don't know how you stand currently, because I've also been out at least to the world, but when you get there, I was in Britain and we were feeding on chicken only because of the price. But I don't know what is the cost of your production, because if you have to get out of the Uganda market, you know you are going to compete with those who almost sell it at peanut. So I think you have to also to get it properly.
So it's a matter of efficiency.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, and the other thing I think, really, KFC. They are doing it from Brazil. Those guys, the volumes they produce. The volumes they produce. I was telling somebody that there's a piggery thing the other side. I went to a place called Britain in France. It's near Rennes, and what they were slaughtering 5,000 pigs per day. So I was asking our people here that what's happening in this really, the things are very different. However, with chicken, and that's why I was telling the director, because she was saying the parent what to sell their own chicks. You could there are fertilized eggs, there's day-old chicks, the brooded chicken, there are table birds, the things we're talking about. Now with the table birds, I mean, that's something that you really need to work on. In India, we went to study that with that lady, Dorothy, to look at that broiler business and what have you. Yeah, from the middle is New Delhi, then you go to Bangalore, whatever, Kolkata, all those places. The people who have the grandparents, the breeders, they sell to those who have parent stock. Those with the parent stock will not engage in their own chick production. These now, hoping this standard rail, whatever, gauge rail will work. But now Uganda, did the planes come or something? Two came. Maybe they will be bigger. They take these fertilized eggs 1,000, 1,500 kilometers for those to get a deal with chicks, to deal with their local markets and whatever.
So another company
yeah. I mean, for them,
hatches the eggs.
Yes. So you have the fertilized eggs. I mean, whatever. You let them invest there. You know, this poultry business, and being we are watching you. We really want you to succeed. However, we are also mindful of the fact that integration, vertical, backwards and forwards in poultry, has major challenges. That one of those segments can become a real thorn in the neck, not even the foot, but in the neck, up so high that you really get into a lot of challenges. So the point is, I mean, decide of what you want to do, because if you go into a lot of parent stock, and you have volumes of eggs and what have you, pack them properly and what have you, here they will go. You may find the hatchability dropping by 2-3%. That's okay. You just deal with the price and what have you. The point is the product will get there, rather than trying you to grow it here and what have you. Then you move from day-old chicks. You others are like what somebody was talking about, the brood and whatever. You go through the vaccinations and what have you, 3-4 weeks. I mean, those are also packed and they have a market for that. Then these others and what have you. The thing is, with the as he has said, in fact I was just looking at here, if we want to deal with Africa, as Yinzika said, I mean, is the study done? What's the cost of those products in those countries? And what's their policy concerning outside Africa, those infusions? Because I think he put it, the presenter, I think put it as a problem of what? Challenge. Even importation of what? I think he talked of the old chicks. I mean, the direct importers of the old chicks who don't have parent stock, but who just bring in. And I think he called it dumping. I don't know. In that presentation, he called it dumping. I mean, dumping meaning they bring here very bad stuff that is underpriced, or what's dumping in that regard? Bad stock, bad genes.
Well, I think usually what they refer to, for example, someone will go to Brazil.
Yes.
They know chicken there is very cheap, so they will import it to Uganda, where the cost of production is high. So this guy comes with his chicken, it's bought it cheaply, and he will sell it at a very low price. So that's the sort of level. Even someone bringing in chicks and selling maybe 10-20%
less, lower than
what other companies around are selling. But I think you're right, it all goes back to the efficiencies. So it becomes, we always feel it's dumping because the efficiency is down. So we are selling at a higher price.
Yes.
But though sometimes some people do it politically, they know their area, they sell at a higher price, but because they want to affect your business,
exactly,
they sell at a lower price in the area. So it's always tricky. It's business.
Very tricky.
But I think what I pick from you is that there's need to specialize sometimes. Not too much to do everything. So we have companies that are specializing maybe in slaughter of chicken. Others are specializing in day-old chick supply, specializing in poultry feed.
So there we'll build our capacity as a nation, and then we'll definitely.
And let me
come
just say
in.
this, Mr. Chairman. These people, you've been chairman of, there was this thing called WUKO for primary something, for dairy. Those farmers started complaining about the price. They said, oh, I think we should deal with the whole value chain. They said, are you sure? They want to raise them to breed, first of all, to breed the cattle. They raise the commercial cattle. Milk, transport the milk to some bulking center, and go and manage a factory. You're trying to put up a factory. I don't know how far they've got it. All that, the farmers, to do all that. So we told them, if we were you concentrate on what segment. If you like it too, maybe. Now you've heard what Pala said. The print is there, and there's no milk. Because the farmers who should have invested in his stocks, you know, in primary production, getting the milk out, they are using money to buy trucks, to buy cooling, whatever. Now, to buy what? This munyas is what? Grass. It's grass, yes. Yes. The seed that, I mean, money is the resource is not endless. I mean, it is finite. So, and because of that, what is suffered is the production.
Mr. Chairman.
All right. Yes. Yes.
I think
please.
something that we must raise or emphasize.
Yes.
From what you said and from what we are saying, the cost of production. The cost of production in Uganda is higher than elsewhere. Because I mean, you use a lot of electricity. What is your bill? Your electricity bill. It's a killer. That one, you know. So even if you are getting, even if your raw material is cheaper, that alone. Yeah. Yes. So this is where government has got to come in. That these are enterprises which are employing people. They are addressing a lot of socio-economic issues. So they should. When UEB was still there, I have the good fortune that I was around at that time. The industries were paying much less than the domestic consumer. But now they are penalized because they were using a lot of power. But now industry is being penalized for using a lot of power. This is something that's a policy issue. It's a policy issue. The cost of production, cost of doing business.
So I think we are also running out of time. We'll have to, because I see we've quite given a mouthful of points. So I'm going to suggest that.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, please.
I have been putting down those points.
Yes.
But I didn't note a point regarding the raw materials for the feeds. What is the situation like? Because normally during the year we get poultry farmers saying that currently there isn't enough maize. We're not getting enough maize bran, even maybe soy and so on, those ingredients. What is the situation regarding the feeds? Because
okay, I think we talked about the quality.
Yeah, we talked
and
about
also that. But you're right, we've not talked about how do we stock our reserves for raw materials, especially for feed.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, please.
The law, I think Dr. Sentum, the director, mentioned something about the feed bill.
Sure.
And some of the concerns that we had with that one is that they were talking about the finished product. So we're telling them, how can you develop that and you leave out the constituents, those ingredients that we talk about? Now, I don't know what they are saying. It looks like they were not, because that law is about some kind of controlling things that may come in from whatever those standards and so on and so forth. So with the ingredients, they were not very keen to say much about that. However, Mr. Chairman, poultry in other concepts, they were the ones who are now dealing with the dual purpose and the scavenging backyard bats. The principle is that chicken are supposed to be the cleaners of environment. As a rule. I mean, not chicken, avian, I mean, the birds, poultry. They are the ones who are supposed to pick out whatever bird it is. It's when you turn them the way we have done, that we house them into deep litter systems and what have you. They are not able to say, no, I'll not eat this, or no, whatever. Now we give them concentrate, compounded feed. So the issue now of the thing you're talking about, toxicity and what have you, becomes a very pertinent issue. The danger is that there are these things called the premixes. The line between feeding and poisoning an animal, a bird, is very, very, very thin. So much so that in other countries where we have visited, they have outlawed individual this chitio business of our setting and what have you. The reason is really to say, the big guys, first of all, many of those premixes, after about 5-6 days of whatever, they are really not in. You need fresh. Now, a guy goes, because he says, I mix for myself, that one. Yeah. Because somebody has taught me, today, was it workshop, whatever it was, he mixes the feed that is going to make like a math. Yeah. So at the end of the day, there is hardly anything. Okay, of course, there are things in there. What I'm saying is the other very important ingredients are gone. They are no longer useful and what have you, but they're mixed and what have you. There's poisoning and what have you. But remember, as he or she feeds those birds, there are eggs to be consumed by the next person. There's meat to be consumed by the next person. So we are getting, these cancers you hear of, don't imagine that they are coming from very far. Those type of things are becoming part of the thing. So, one, do we like to see that we really continue promoting the issue of this cottage mixing, whatever it is? Should that continue given the trade and what, especially for those commercial things and what have you? Two, the thing about the issue of, it talks of the Q mark. Is there a Q mark for that a household can get? The way it is keeping, it's mukene, it's, I'm just wondering, Mr. Chairman. I'm just giving those thoughts and we see how people can respond to those.
Yeah, they're quite interesting. I think they will fall into basically two issues. Consumer protection. I think the consumers, for example, for the eggs you're talking about that are coming from a farm where someone is just mixing whatever they want. Yeah. And then also where we talked about the standards. Yeah. Surely once the QMAC comes in or the standards are set and they are implemented, we shouldn't really see a lot of these chitty or people or those roadside mixers continuing, because what the feed bill is saying is that these guys should actually either amalgamate and form one sort of center where they can pool resources and do a more standardized sort of product, or they basically run out of business. So I think the standards, once the government comes in and sets the standards and then also creates awareness of those standards to the consumers, plus the implementation, it's really going to help. Now, I'm going to ask us, unless when we have really a burning point, to have volunteers who are going to work on, who will be part of the working group, because we need to set up a working group for the poultry sector, which is going to help sort of sieve out all these points together to set up goals. And then these goals will have to possibly meet some other day, not today. Discuss them again, have outcomes that we think that are reasonable, and then set timelines for these outcomes. And then thereafter we shall have indicators for those particular goals. So, like Mr. Edward said, this is a volunteership. I think there's no payment for it. So if we have some volunteers that have time, because it will require some time and dedication to work on this, to drive it home. So you can just raise up your hand and we'll get your details. Just give me your name, please.
Susan.
Susan.
1
anyone else who is interested?
I am interested.
Yes, doctor.
Can we propose a name?
Did you say time or energy? I think voluntarism is about energy. Time can always be created.
Both, I think, are important. They are required. Yes, doctor. We are looking for volunteers. In your absence, we are saying we need volunteers to join the working group that is going to drive, because we've had a lot of points, so we need to drive these points into actual goals that we can put timelines for and then see a way forward. So we are looking for volunteers who have, doctor is saying, energy, time. It's a volunteership, so there's no remuneration. But it's public good.
But we can work electronically.
Yes, definitely. It has to be. So you'll actually have to share your email addresses.
Then it's okay.
Yes.
Then I would second her that this team, they volunteer to do this, since we shall be working electronically. And they have a secretary then once in a while you can meet, but so that you can now go and try to look at it, then we share.
Okay.
Then at least we have a secretary.
My colleague here against.
Because he's very knowledgeable.
Alex.
Well, did you say this team? I hear he's saying this team. So you are saying we just take our...
All of us, we just get our contacts and email addresses.
Register?
Yes.
The names and the good handwriting and the
email address.
Including email address?
Because we have...
very big.
Making, playing the devil's advocate.
Yes.
Isn't this, for a task force, is this group too big?
How many would have been the task forces? Yes.
It's okay?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those will be enough.
Because
she's pulling out, eh? You're pulling out.
Anyway, there is another man, Susan.
Yes.
There's Malu Jackson.
I'll be part of it. Chagulani, Brian.
Chagulani, and then I propose my own friend here.
This Brian?
Yeah, Brian.
Sally.
William.
Chagulani may become a problem. Confusing.
No.
Dr. Sally.
The other one.
Sally?
William.
Dorothy.
And Sally double S.
Yeah, of course.
Is Mercy her only team? She's very knowledgeable.
Yeah, she said.
Mercy Babidi.
She said she's interested.
Uganda Business Alliance, so we are certainly supporting the entire process.
So what I have here, Mr. Chairman,
yes, please.
Narumasi Susan,
Still the meeting, but
Malu Jackson,
sorry?
Chagulani Brian, Sally
I'm about to finish.
William, Dorothy Nakagoma, and Mercy Babidi.
Okay, then I'll get back to you.
Does it sound?
Yeah, unless anyone else has been missed.
Has been what's the word?
How many so far?
Because I think what will happen after the initial drafting, they'll be sharing so that people can, other members can enrich the.
Sure.
So, Mr. Chairman,
yes,
this team.
Yes.
So, do we say Brian is chairman and Mercy is the secretary?
Yes.
Does that sound okay?
Makes sense.
Makes sense. No, I'm just asking, Mr. Chairman.
I think it's fine.
They did not object, so.
So team of one.
Neither did the meeting object.
Yes.
Is she on?
Yes, that's
yeah, she's on.
Naruman's
Susan.
Naruman's from the clan.
You see, I feel very comfortable when you have young people.
Yeah,
sure.
Because some of us should be taking back seats. So that, but we will be there, we are there to make sure that we guide. But the future is, it is yours now.
Amy ekyemito
gyegigumiza ekibira naye kasaba tatatweyabira ffe bamuziire naffe wetuli.
All right, so I think we have now the team. So I will be advised by UAA, it's UAA, right? Mr. Edward. I'm going to request you pass around that paper so that people put their contacts.
Oh, this one?
Yes.
Ah. He was writing it.
It's not.
It's yours, eh?
My neighbor is very concerned about the garden.
You can get a
What is the
newspaper.
role of that team?
This one, no.
No, the role of the team, just to recap it, we are going to transform these deliberations we've had today into specific goals that we can set timelines for, and then push to make sure that we get outcomes, and then key indicators of if there is progress or if there is no progress of these specific deliberations that we have had.
Paper is coming.
Oh, yeah, Mr. Chairman, you would want to know why my neighbor is objecting to this paper. Because her name is there.
She's not interested?
And yet, no, maybe not interested, energy. Email. So. Hey.
You have to be on the list. We need you on the task force. So otherwise, thank you very much. As we are passing around, you can talk to your neighbor and get to know what they are doing. I think the meeting is adjourned. Eh?
I would like to thank you very much for steering this meeting well.
Now we are going to communicate on email. Eh?
Yes. I'd like to know how can we, unless that will be decided by the task force, engage other players in the poultry industry. And so of course that will be determined by us. But how do we get